And we get it rolling. It is June the 26th. About, what are we looking at? Almost 9 o'clock on the West Coast, midnight Eastern. Hope everybody's having a great day. Larry Krueger with you for the Krueg Show. And, of course, we are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Best barbecue in Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville, Corte Madera. We're also brought to you by New York Style Italian Sausage. Our brand new sponsor on the bottom of the screen, Marin Auto Glass. Thank you to Saeed and the boys at Marin Auto Glass at marinautoglass.com. Telmetrics is here with us tonight as well. And all of you as we get it rolling. John Lund, our guest from KBR, our good friend, and we're back to talk a little all things. We'll get into some Giants and Warriors at the end, but mostly we're going to talk a little 49ers. Johnny, good to see you.
Great to see you, Krueg, as always. You are the best, man. It is always my pleasure to hang out with you, and we've been friends for a long time. For those who don't know, it goes back to my kid who's back in town, and your kids are back in town. You coached him when he was on the mini Dodgers. Krueg wore an LA hat. He had to.
We were dominant,
coach, but yeah, I mean, we've known each other for years and lived by each other and did Niners for years and did ESPN radio together. And so, man, it's always awesome to catch up with you, man.
Yeah, I was actually telling the story one night about how I came outside after being on ESPN radio with you and somebody had shot up my windshield.
Oh, that's right.
Remember that? Shot up bullets on the windshield. Oh, yeah. That's always a good one. I wish I knew Marin Auto Glass back then, Johnny. I could have used Marin Auto Glass, but yeah, I mean the violent city. Let's talk though. I mean, a lot to get to. One, first of all, love your show with Greg, and you guys do an incredible job. And tell people where they can find you. You got your project going on Locked On as well. Before we get rolling, tell people where they can catch you if they're catching you for the first time on YouTube. I'm sure people know you, of course, but there's always somebody new.
Yeah, and I like what you're doing, and you kind of inspired me. So the powers that be allowed me to work with a good friend of mine, David Locke, and they do the Locked On network, and a lot of people probably follow those kind of things. But John Lund Unleashed on YouTube, and I've got the podcast going. You can go to Apple, Spotify, John Lund Unleashed, and then of course Pop and I, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on KBR, the KBR app, and all that kind of stuff. So anywhere you want to catch us, that's what everybody's doing, right? Nobody's just doing one thing; everybody's doing a bunch of stuff. So that's what we're doing.
That sounds awesome, Johnny. And now, before we get into Niners, I saw your very powerful YouTube on health, and for those who missed it, fill us in and with if you can, and give us a little perspective shaker because we haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah, and I'll make this quick because everybody wants to talk Niners and sports, and I don't want to bog anybody down, but I just, it took me a long time. I didn't need a colonoscopy until I was well over 50. And all I'm saying to anybody is just prioritize your health. I'm not here to give you a lecture, do whatever you want, but you don't want to find out too late. And basically, I had my 3-week checkup. I was in the hospital for a week due to colon cancer, and they got everything and took some of my colon out and took my appendix out and did all this different stuff. But the bottom line to the whole thing is, without giving you the gory details, is it just prioritize your health because they caught this thing. Literally, it was turning into cancer. I just talked to my doctor again today, and they caught it probably within 30 days. And colon cancer is a slow moving cancer. So, it's one of those things, but my dad died of pancreatic cancer within 90 days. My mother-in-law is dealing with pancreatic cancer. My mom had breast cancer. I had lip cancer. Get a skin, whether it's your skin, whether it's your colon, whether it's your whatever it is, prostate. Greg Papa's brother died of prostate cancer. So Greg's obsessed with making sure he knows his numbers. So, without giving you too much, just prioritize your health. I know we're all busy and you get all these things going, but I did a video and you can check it out. And it's only about 10 minutes long. And it just kind of gives you a longer version of the story of what happened to me. But they literally just caught it in time. I mean, they literally in fact, he told me today exactly what they did. And there was all these things that, again, I don't need to get into details on, but I was days away from having a cancer diagnosis. So let mine be a warning to you, because if I hadn't got that colonoscopy and they hadn't caught the cancer, then we'd probably be doing a different thing. So anyway, just prioritize your health and whatever it is you need to get done. And I did the whole battery of tests, my heart, my whole thing. It just woke me up. So I did the whole car wash thing, and it was good as I can be. And just trying to prioritize my health. And I would just suggest everybody do the same. So whether it's a colonoscopy, whether it's knowing your numbers, whether it's getting your skin checked, getting your heart checked, you don't want to find out before it's too late, because that is no fun.
Yeah. And dude, thank you for sharing, because you know what, when you do these jobs, we talk about all kinds of things that mean absolutely nothing.
Right.
We talk about baseball and basketball and who got snubbed and, drafts and trades.
Lists and who said what, and
It's fun, but it means jack, right?
I mean, health is your wealth, and they say it all the time. But man, you just, I was in the hospital for a week. I've had to, I've been recovering for 3 weeks. I'm finally going back into the studio tomorrow for the first time in 3 weeks, and maybe I'll do a couple days, but I get exhausted and all that kind of stuff quickly. But it's just take a minute, because we are all so busy, and you got that meeting, and you got the kids, and you got all these different things that are pulling you both ways. But man, you get to certain ages and just get it checked out, and it's so simple to do. And we just don't take the time to do it. And a lot of us, that are watching, fortunate enough to watch your show, you've got insurance. I mean, it's all covered by that stuff. We just don't do it. And that, again, all my messages is just whatever it is, just sit down for a second, slow down, prioritize your health, because if you don't, then it'll do it for you. And that's what happened to me. It's just, being laid up in a hospital for a week when you got all these wires hanging out of you, and these nurses are all like, "Good job, Johnny. You're taking steps." I'm doing a lap around the hospital thinking, yeah, this is awesome. I did a lap. It's like, it's because at some point it's just going to catch you, and you're going to have to slow down anyway. So just try to get ahead of it. That's all.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's a great message. Thank you for using your platform to share it too, because I mean, it's you're showing vulnerability, but at the same time, you're helping so many people, because the reality is that, people, guys just need a reminder more than anything. We just need a reminder.
Yeah,
it's like we're not total morons, but we do need a reminder sometimes.
We think we're tougher than what we are. I mean, I'll just fight through this whole thing. And I said this on the podcast and on the YouTube show, is look, cancer doesn't care, man. Cancer doesn't care gender. Cancer doesn't care race. Cancer doesn't care how old you are. Cancer, it's anybody can get it. And so when they set those guidelines, and the doctors set the guidelines, just do what you're supposed to do, because we want you around for a long time. It's the bottom line is, you can determine at a certain age, you can determine how long you're going to live this life. And if you just do the right things, more times than not, they'll catch it in time. And the doctors are absolutely unbelievable. I mean, they did it laparoscopically on me with these little cameras. And it was, I mean, just what they can do nowadays is amazing, but they can't do anything unless you get there in time. That's all.
Great message. Absolutely. Listen to John. Get checked, everybody. Let's talk a little 49ers, Johnny. If people don't know, John and I did pre and post for years, and you're as into and as dialed in on the Niners as anybody. You sit next to Greg during the show. You obviously have watched every down of Niner football. I think you're, from sitting with you, you're one of the best, most knowledgeable football observers there are. Albert Breer's got a story out there right now, and it's just, some people would say, well, it's nothing new, right? But basically what he's saying is all signs are pointing to Brock Purdy being ready for September 10th at Heinz Field, Week 1, Niners Steelers, and that there's nothing for sure, but that he could start throwing in mid-August, and that he's clearly number one. And then Albert Breer goes on a whole thing about how Sam Darnold is sounding like he's kind of making it seem like Sam Darnold's going to be the number 2. And the whole idea and Breer's message was that last year the 49ers gave last year to Trey. And obviously, we saw how the year went with the injury, which was a lost year for him. But this year, they are hell-bent to win the Super Bowl, and they want to put their best quarterback on the field, the guy they think can help them win, and that's Purdy. And it sounds like if Purdy's not ready to go, that's not Trey, that's Darnold. And from what Breer's saying, and he's basically saying Trey's played 1 year of football since high school. He's going to make mistakes. Last year they were willing to roll him out there and live with his mistakes. This year they are not going to be willing to do that. What's Trey's future with the Niners? What do you think of this story?
Man, that's a great question. From what I can gather is that early in the season they struggled, and it's not exactly a similar situation, but when Jimmy Garoppolo had to come in, we saw that Denver game and he was rusty. So for me, there's a lot of importance to this story, because I just can't believe that Brock Purdy, who had the surgery on March 10th, and then literally 6 months later to the day, the NFL season's going to start. He's 23 years old. He's the franchise quarterback. They're not going to take a chance in rolling him out there. And if people didn't see this, and look, I don't make any money off this. Jennifer Lee Chan wrote a piece. She was down at Tight End U at Kittle's camp in Nashville, and she talked to our good friend BDN, Nick Mullins, and he said exactly similar surgery, similar thing happened, and he said at 6 months he was ready to throw, but he wasn't ready to be in a football game. So let's think about that. I mean, you really think the 49ers or anybody, they just don't do this nowadays. I don't care if it's the Warriors. I don't care if it's any team. They just don't rush players back. And so he could be on track, and he's in Jacksonville throwing with a quarterback a guy right now. He's with an ortho guy down there. He's on track. It's not that he's not. He's not behind. He's not ahead. He's right on track. But I have a hard time believing that the 49ers are going to throw Brock Purdy out there on the exact 6-month anniversary. I just don't see it coming. So the first couple of games, it is critical. And the reason why it's critical is the 49ers, if they had gotten off to a better start last year, and this is them talking, they wouldn't have been in Philadelphia. They'd have been in San Francisco for the NFC Championship game, and probably everything changes. So that is their goal this year, first and foremost, not the overall goal. The goal is the Super Bowl. And I would say that they're desperate to win a Super Bowl. That's the sense that I get when I go down there. But they want to get off to a great start. So if Brock Purdy's not there for the first couple of weeks, which is what I expect, then who is going to be that guy? You and I think, are in agreement on this. Greg loves Sam Darnold. I know the organization loves Sam Darnold. I'm a bottom line results guy. I haven't seen it from him. So that's fine that he was a third overall pick, and it's fine that everybody talks about how he's the best thrower, this, that, and the other. And you know this is better than I do. There's a lot of intricacies to the position. It's not about athleticism. It's not about arm strength. It's about accuracy, which he hasn't had. It's about getting it to the right place, which he doesn't do. It's about having composure, which he hasn't shown. Making the right decisions. He's thrown the most interceptions of starters since he's come into the league. So look, everybody can look at Sam Darnold and see this great looking prospect, but and say that he didn't have a chance with the Jets and he didn't have a chance with the Panthers. But I just haven't seen it. So I can't put that into the bank. Trey Lance, they're just, from what I understand, they're just not willing to do it again. And I'm not anti-Trey Lance. I'm just saying, and it's not fair, and life ain't fair, and sports ain't fair. But he got an opportunity in Chicago in the middle of a rainstorm, to say the least, and he got hurt against Seattle, and that was his chance. And unfortunately, Jimmy, then Brock Purdy ran with the situation, and I don't think they're going to give him another opportunity early in the season because they think it is so critical that they get off to a great start and they have home field advantage so they can win a Super Bowl. So that leaves Trey Lance, and let's throw Brandon Allen in here. I think that if everything rolls the way it looks right now, that it's going to be Brock Purdy as the starter when he's ready, Sam Darnold, and Brandon Allen. And I don't know where that leaves Trey Lance, because what kind of value, I'll ask you, what kind of value does Trey Lance have around the league? Not very much.
It really makes this preseason quite interesting, doesn't it? As far as I bet you anything, if we check the seating chart at the game, there's going to be a number of teams who are going to be having, scouts sitting there next to us in the press box in those preseason games looking at Trey Lance, because it sounds like he was going to be available at the cutdown.
Yeah, and here's the thing too: if you're a team that maybe doesn't have a young quarterback or like Trey Lance coming out of the draft, but knew that he was going to have to sit a little while, now he's going into his third year. Well, you can go into the fourth year, then there's a fifth-year option. So really, what he's got, if you're a team that's looking at him, you want to get him in your camp now, because you got a third year, then you got a fourth year, and then you'd have to make a decision on a fifth-year option for Trey Lance. And, there are teams, I'm sure, that liked Trey Lance, but everybody knew that he was inexperienced. Everybody knew that he was probably going to have to sit for a couple of years. But if you're one of those teams and you can get Trey Lance on the cheap, and again, he's not making a ton of money in your quarterback room. So if you were one of those teams that liked him and you've got an unsettled quarterback position, rather than going out and spending a top pick on a quarterback, why not take a look at Trey Lance? The only thing that would be a negative to that is, you pick up a veteran or something like that at the deadline, or you or late in training camp, maybe you have an injury at the position. It's been shown that those guys can pick up the offense pretty quickly. Sam Bradford a couple of years ago, of course, Carson Palmer, was picked up by the Raiders and the Bengals. I mean, it happens that guys are hurt. But those are veteran players who can pick up offenses, who have shown they can pick up offenses, who know the NFL. Here's Trey Lance, and the big wild card with him is, let's say he did fall to fourth and then they traded him. First of all, they wouldn't get very much in return. They would get some salary hit back, a little bit of money there. But, I mean, who would take Trey Lance? They'd almost have to sit him another year so that he could learn the offense, because if he missed camp with the team, then he's got to learn during the season on the fly. And you know this as well as I do. Backups don't get any reps. So then what's he going to do? Be on a side field and try to learn the entire offense? So this is another redshirt year for Trey Lance, and then he could compete for the job in his fourth year, in the last year of his contract, and then a team has to decide whether they're going to pick up a fifth year. Life ain't fair, man, but Trey Lance has been dealt a pretty tough hand.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing. This is a tough call for the 49ers. They could look really, really bad on the end of this if they let him walk and he becomes great somewhere else and they couldn't develop him. I mean, that's going to be a rough thing to deal with as well. I mean,
The patience, right? I mean, you and I mean, it's like, I just think that they're in this mode. And I've said this before. I don't know what the hell Kyle Shanahan was thinking. I don't know if he was drunk when he made the draft pick or what. But if we look back at the history of the quarterbacks that he likes, now RG3 was kind of thrust upon him, and his dad Mike was coaching the then Redskins at the time and said, look, develop an offense for this guy. But he liked Kirk Cousins better, who they took in the very same draft. He wants a guy who will execute. Look, I'm the genius here. I'm the puppeteer. If you run my plays, they will work. So I don't want anybody running around. I don't want backyard football. I don't want you improvising. I don't want you holding the ball. Get the ball out, get it to the right people. How many times have we seen Kyle Shanahan be asked about what he values in a quarterback? And he says, get it out, get it on time, be accurate, make it to the right place. You know what I mean? He says that every single time. And again, this is not a rip on Trey Lance. He hasn't played enough. That's not him. He is not accurate. He doesn't see it quickly. There's all these great. He's got all these physical attributes. I'm just telling you, not anti Trey Lance. I'm just telling you what he looks for in a quarterback. And think about it. Matt Schaub, Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo, like these type of quarterbacks, they're not the greatest. Matt Ryan's going to go to the Hall of Fame, but these aren't the greatest, but they get it out, they get it on time, they get it to the right place so that Kyle Shanahan's offense works at a really high level. And even Sam Darnold, I'm not a Darnold guy, but if you look at it, and I think Pro Football Focus did this today or yesterday, or whatever, they have the best I think Bill Barnwell actually did this on ESPN. They have the best skill position players in the league. So just get it to the right guys at the right time. Kyle's got the offense designed the right way. Don't improvise on me. Don't be inaccurate. Don't hold the ball too long. I mean, I think that's the other thing about Darnold. I think that over the last X amount of years, I think the guys who hold it the longest, Trey Lance holds it 3.15 and Sam Darnold holds it 3.22. I mean, this is where I don't get Darnold. He's not accurate. He doesn't get rid of it. He doesn't see it. But everybody within the Niners organization loves Sam Darnold. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either, but it is really interesting. I mean, I would say that if you ask me who do I think is going to win the competition, I think Lance would outplay Darnold in the preseason. But if if they feel like Darnold is going to be number two, and then you got Brandon Allen. What's going to happen with Trey? Are they going to keep? Are they? I mean, Brandon Allen was Joe Burrow's backup last year. He was a legitimate number two. I got to think he had other options. Instead, he comes here. So that one's kind of curious. So it's like, and then Darnold came here at the beginning of free agency.
So the first day.
I'd love to know what was said to their agents.
Too. Like, what was the thing? Because you sign on the first day, and it's not like you got a ton of money. What did you get? I think a base of like 3.5 or something. But I mean, if you sign with a team on the first day, they're saying to you something you want to hear, and you're saying to them, absolutely. And I think this is a chance for him to resurrect his career. And he probably looked at the situation and said, well, Brock Purdy's hurt. Trey Lance is not established. I could go in here with these type of weapons and resurrect my career. I could see why Darnold did it. I want to know why the 49ers did it, because they basically told you without telling you, we don't trust Trey Lance. They signed a quarterback on the first day of free agency. What does that say about Trey Lance? Again, I'm not hating. It's just read the tea leaves of what the 49ers can say all they want. And John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan can say all they want. And all, Trey's progressing and we love Trey. And that's for leverage, because if they ever move him, why would you rip your own player? Why would you ever say that, hey, Trey's not coming around and Trey's not seeing it and we don't know what we're going to do with Trey? They would never say that. They're going to try to maintain leverage.
No, of course. I mean, Mike Dunleavy said that Jordan Poole was going to be here for 4 more years. He wasn't even here for 4 more days. I mean, you say what you need to say. Talk's cheap. I never listen. It's never about what they say. It's about what they do and the indications. But, here's the one thing. It's like Trey Lance is got 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He's got a 77 quarterback rating. He's completed 54.9%. He's 2-2 in his career in 4 starts. There's so many guys who have started so bad. I guess the question would be this. Clearly, Trey has the traits that you love because they fell in love with the kid on some level, right? When they drafted him. There were a bunch of things they liked about him. You had to know that it was a little bit of a boomer bust pick because of his story and his situation. He hadn't played very much football. But then if I think it was safe to assume that you knew it was a long range kind of a play. The question I would have is, have you quit on it altogether, or do you just see? It's hard for me to believe that you love the guy, but he's not ready to play if you quit on him altogether. If you pay the money, that's a lot of money because he was the third pick in the draft, and keep him as number 3 on your depth chart. You're and it's an investment you can make because your starter is so cheap and so relatively inexpensive. But will they? Will they keep Trey and have him be number 3 and have him make the most money, or and develop him over the next 3 to 4 years and keep him around? Or do you think that they would move off of him at the trade death, or at the cut down, and go with Brandon Allen as number 3 and Darnold as number 2, and try to move Trey for whatever they can get?
Well, first and foremost, and I know fans hold on to this, the fact that they gave up the picks that they gave up and everything like that's done, right? That's business. You don't compound the problem if you don't like the guy by have him hang around just because of what you gave up. So those picks are all gone. They don't owe anything else, and so now you're free and clear. But my answer to that would be, and I'd ask you back this: what's his value? So right now, these guys are stocks, right? High, low, whatever. They just traded Jordan Poole at a low. They were talking about the Warriors. They just traded James Wiseman at a low. You don't want to do that unless you absolutely have to. But I don't know how good Brandon Allen is, but again, in talking to people down there, they like Brandon Allen. They like Sam Darnold. They love Brock Purdy. They say publicly they love Trey Lance, but I don't think they do. But okay, let's just say it comes down to cut down day. I mean, are they really going to keep Brandon Allen over Trey Lance? Because who are you going to trade him to? And then if you are a team out there, as we were just talking about, you're picking up Trey Lance for the potential of it, and he probably wouldn't even play this year. So now you're looking at 3 redshirt years. He's in such an awkward position because he needs to play, but maybe he's not good enough to play. And you mentioned the starts that he's had. Let's go through that. Remember Arizona? You and I were doing pre and post game that day. Ran all over the place. He gets hurt against Seattle. That was the way that, because Kyle didn't trust him to throw, running was the way that Kyle thought he could win that football game. He played against Houston. Everybody hangs on that over route that he threw to Deebo Samuel. And it was like, oh, did you see that throw? Or to Trent Sherfield in that preseason game. Oh, did you see that throw? Like, we see the glimpses of it, but glimpses are not what makes a player, a professional player. All these guys are so talented, no matter the sport. They can show you glimpses of anything. Even the guy who never scores, more than 8 or 10 a game. Hell, Tolbert. Tolbert had like a 30-point game in his career. I love Tolbert. But the fact of the matter is, it's about the consistency, play to play, right? Play to play in the NFL, game to game in the NFL. That's the way that it works. No, there was a reason why the guy was taken third overall. He can show a ton of flashes, but on a consistent basis, that's why they love Brock Purdy. Is they feel like play to play, game to game, he gives them the best opportunity to win. And it comes down to the fact that, and I think this word is accurate, they are desperate to win a Super Bowl down there.
Yeah.
So does Trey Lance just doesn't match up with the timeline, and they were willing to give him a chance last year. And look, the Bears game, that wasn't fair. And the Seattle game, he gets hurt. He's not getting a fair chance, but we're not children here. Bobby got more, jelly beans than I got. It's the NFL. It's professional sports. Life ain't fair. I don't think he's ever going to get a chance here. But to go back to what you said, I'll ask you this: why would they trade him? Because the stock is at an all-time low. I mean, what would you get back for Trey Lance? A 7 and a conditional if he plays. You wouldn't get anything back for him, would you?
I just all I'm saying is to avoid the criticism, because come on, there's going to be significant noise made from the fan base, and maybe I'm too in the Twitter world and the YouTube world to maybe I'm my view of the world's distorted, because maybe the real fans all like Brock Purdy, but to me it seems almost like 50-50, between Purdy and Lance. Purdy seems like Lance seems like he's a beloved figure. And if it's one thing to say Brock Purdy's in front of him. I think, the Lance fans would be like, okay, reluctantly, he played well, he should start there. But if you get a healthy Trey Lance who plays reasonably well in the preseason, and you start Sam Darnold at Heinz Field and tell everybody that Trey's too raw, all I got to say is you better win games at that point, or people are going to absolutely come through the woodwork and be like, we want to see Trey Lance,
No doubt.
because they've been told that Trey's the face of the team. And they, to some degree, they bought into it as the original plan, and they don't want to deviate from the original plan until they see more than 4 career starts. And that's the thing. It's like, I did a deep dive, John, on all the Hall of Fame quarterbacks that have ever played in the NFL and how they started. And like basically they all sucked for like at least the first couple of years. Everybody. I mean, there's a few exceptions, but I think we're so cued in on or so tuned into what Mahomes did that anything south of 50 touchdowns and 5 picks in your first year is going to be like some nightmare. But also that it's like that it can be done. Like it's really easy. The quarterbacks that start fast in the NFL, it's very, very rare. That's why the Purdy thing is so impressive on his front. And also why I think you can't give up on Trey Lance so easily, but there's a contract price in a cap sport. So his number gets pretty fat. Yeah. The question I would have is how long are they willing? We know they love him, but how, at least they say they love him. We know they love him as a person. I don't know if they love his quarterback play, but they love him as a guy. How long are they going to keep him as if their evaluation is if he plays, he'd make mistakes. If he made mistakes, they would lose. And Purdy's the starter and Darnold's the 2. Are you gonna, basically keep him as a third string quarterback and have him be inactive on game days unless the first 2 guys get hurt? And don't you think there's going to be a huge public outcry? I think they do. I think there would be, and I think they understand that. So that's what made me think that they would move on from him, just because they don't want this daily competition of Darnold. If they really want to clear the deck for Darnold, well, I don't know. I'm not sure what they want. I mean, if it's me, I'm taking a full look at Trey Lance at the beginning of the year, but I'm giving him at least 2-3 games unless he really gets outplayed in the preseason by Darnold.
There's no doubt. And here's the thing too. This is part of the fallacy of this. And then I want to ask you about Brock Purdy. People continue to say that we don't know. We don't know because we're not at every practice and they're closed off to the meeting. We see some of camp. And so we just see the throwing. It's kind of like the throwing motion, right? And then they close the doors and we don't see what Trey Lance is doing in these kind of things. They know. Yeah. I mean, they're experts. They know, they're watching. And from what we hear, Trey still has big time accuracy issues. Trey still has a hard time seeing it. He's not progressing to the level that they feel comfortable. So I understand the fandom. And I also understand, like you're pointing out here, and I'm the same way. Look, they gave up a bunch to get Trey Lance. He was the 3rd overall pick. We got excited about Trey Lance. We saw him make some plays. We saw him make a run. We're watching all these quarterbacks as fans all over the league, make all these plays with their legs. I want one of those. I mean, that's kind of how I think. I could be wrong, but the fan base looks at this thing is, man, I want one of these modern day quarterbacks who can run, who can throw. Could you, how many times have we talked about this? God, could you imagine Kyle Shanahan's offense with a guy who can run and throw and all these weapons? And you add Trey Lance, what would the running game look like? So we've kind of been robbed of that opportunity to see what we thought we were going to see, right? Which is, we were promised this one thing, and so we want to see that. And as much as Brock Purdy played well, he's your typical, right, drop back quarterback, Sam Darnold. Nobody's excited about that because we've seen him play. Brandon Allen, who the hell's that guy? Backed up Burrow in Cincinnati. So we've kind of been robbed of this 3rd overall pick guy that we all got excited about. And like I said, I just don't think they're going to have enough patience. They committed to it last year. I don't think they'll commit to it this year. They are in this Super Bowl window. They thought they should have won the Super Bowl last year, as strange as that sounds, if the game was at home versus Philly, and they cannot risk, or they do not feel like they can risk getting off to a slow start like they did last year. So I think those guys have an advantage based on the experience. So that's the Trey side of things. But let me ask you this, because I've always been consistent in saying this. I don't think Brock Purdy should get a pass. I mean, I like Brock Purdy. But Brock Purdy against the Cowboys, and we didn't have enough time to see him against the Eagles, but he's got a lot to work on. He doesn't step up in the pocket. He's a right-handed quarterback who has a tendency to move left. Now what's going to happen is you know this better than I do. During the offseason, what happens is these defensive coordinators start drilling down on guys, and everybody knows that the 49ers are going to be a pain in the ass this year. So Philly, Seattle, the rest of the teams in this division, all around, whoever's going to play the 49ers. Okay, let's see what makes Brock Purdy tick. What's the deal with Brock Purdy? How did this guy – because it's such an amazing story that the last player picked in the draft can have this much success. Now, a lot of it is the guys around him. There's no question. A lot of it is, Kyle Shanahan has a great mind for offense and play calling and all these different things. But other guys have been in this offense and not been great. Your Blaine Gabberts and Hoyers and all that. It's not like the guy isn't a player. So he is. But what is going to – we've seen this from the Giants. Casey Schmidt comes up and does this, and Patrick Bailey and all these different guys. And all of a sudden the league starts adjusting and says, okay, adjust to this, adjust to this, adjust to this. And you have to do that. So the things that Brock Purdy has shown on film that he may not do well, teams are going to get him on that, and he's going to have to make some adjustments. He is by no means a perfect guy. I mean, if you and I right now played the ranking game, okay, and we ranked quarterbacks in the NFL, where's Brock Purdy? 20? I mean, he's not top 10. He's not top 15. So my point is that how does a quarterback, and in total due respect to the guy, he beat Brady and won all these games and all this stuff. You were at all those games. I mean, look, the guy was great, but he's probably the 20th or so ranked quarterback in the league right now. Why would that guy get a free pass to be the automatic starter, especially when he didn't throw a pass the entire offseason? I would say that this should be a complete open competition, and who's ever best is best, and that guy starts. I wouldn't hand the job to Brock Purdy like the 49ers clearly have done. They've said if he's healthy, he's the guy. To you, has he earned that?
Well, it's a complicated question, isn't it? Because on some level, there's playing quarterback is just, there's so many levels of it, and there's a lot to like here. I mean, he's got 13 touchdowns and 4 picks. He's very, very calm. He's very tough. He's competitive. He can take hits.
Guys love him. They love playing.
He's accurate. He's got way better mobility than you think when you first look at him. You look at him, you're not wowed, but then he's got real good escapability in a short area, and he's just he's a competitive son of a gun, man. I mean, it's just, he's a little like when I talked to him in the locker room, I thought, wow, because I'd already watched him quite a bit, and I was at that point I was a fan. But I mean, his demeanor is really his key. I mean, he's calm but confident. He's humble. I mean, he's a lot of the things that Brady was, personality wise. He's just very, very. This is not accidental. Like, there's not, like, if you're around the guy, you just know there's nothing accidental about this.
Love him. I mean,
this guy's good. I mean, he's just good. He's just a little on the shorter side. Doesn't have the biggest arm.
What's your concern level though that a guy doesn't throw the entire offseason, and he, look, again, I love the guy. I'm not anti-Brock Purdy at all, but what I'm saying is here's a guy who needed to make, regardless of how he played last year, needed to make improvements on his game. He is by no means perfect. Got it to the right guys. I like Brock Purdy a whole lot, but all I'm simply saying is he's going to go into this situation, and whenever he gets thrown in there, and I don't think it's going to be week 1, but whenever he gets thrown in there, he's coming off an offseason in which he didn't throw at all and didn't face competition. And we saw what happened. And look, Jimmy Garoppolo, you love him, hate him, whatever the case may be. He didn't have an offseason, and Seattle ends up winning that game, but against a really good Denver defense, you could just tell he just wasn't ready to play at that level. So Brock Purdy may cost them a couple of early games. And look, the defense is good enough. The players around him are good enough. Kyle is good enough. So maybe they just pull those games out anyway. But an entire offseason of throwing and not throwing is tough with a veteran guy. And here's Brock Purdy, who, as good as he was, still needs to make improvements. And I know you can do the mental reps and do all those kind of things, and he works hard. I'm not saying he doesn't. It's just that is a tall task to ask a kid going into his second year. By the way, don't throw the entire offseason. We're going to get you up, and you're going to be playing, I don't know, week 2, week 3, could even be week 1. And go in there and win us a bunch of football games, because we don't want to lose early in the season, which is the reason we won't play Trey Lance. Yeah, right? This thing is complicated.
It is, and then so much of I mean, he does take shots down the field more so than Garoppolo, but his success is in the quick game. His footwork's impeccable, the timing, his pre-snap reads, his escapability. there are a bunch of his assets that really don't have anything to do with the arm, arm strength in particular. He's not necessarily throwing deep passes. It's about accuracy. So I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting. I'm eager to see how Kyle divvies up the preseason reps at quarterback. And let's see who wins. It's going to be an incredible thing. And I gotta think though, whoever loses this competition will be traded. I think all these quarterbacks are too good. None of these guys are slipping through waivers. They'll be picked up. I mean, you're not going to be able to waive Darnold if he doesn't. Darnold will be picked up. Trey would be picked up. Allen, I think, would be picked up as well. He was a Joe Burrow's backup last year. So, I don't know. To me, the quarterback spot is going to be really, really interesting. But if they don't go with if Purdy, let's say for whatever reason, Purdy can't play for a month and they don't go with Trey Lance, man, there's going to be an awful lot of fans, complaining very loudly unless Trey Lance really doesn't look polished in the preseason. But if Lance plays on the same level as Darnold, or somehow Lance plays better than Darnold in the preseason and Darnold still is active week 1 and Trey's inactive, there's going to be a lot of angry Niner fans. And I just kind of wonder, do they care about that at all?
Yeah, and I think they are. I think they're media savvy in this whole thing. I mean, I just have a bad sense because I feel like a fan in this situation. I'd love to see Trey Lance play. We've been, like I said, we've been robbed because of the injuries and he had to sit and all these different things. And we've seen him in a few games, Arizona, Houston, as we talked about, Seattle, Chicago, and that weather wasn't really fair. But, we've seen him in these games, but we really haven't gotten a look. And here we got excited. He was the 3rd overall pick and he can run, he can throw, he can do all these different things. And going into the 3rd year, you would think, he would have an opportunity. I think the thing that frustrates fans is that it doesn't sound like he would get a fair shake. And I don't know. And we asked this at the beginning of the offseason, could Trey Lance better his status in the offseason in preseason games without Brock Purdy around so that he could, somehow win a job? Now, I don't know that he's going to win the starting job because they've said at every turn, Brock Purdy's the guy, win healthy, Brock Purdy's the guy. But, the Sam Darnold love confuses the hell out of me. They know a lot more football than I do. But again, just watching the game itself, Sam Darnold doesn't seem to have the mental side of the game. Look, he looks great throwing it. Mayoko wrote the piece about he's the best thrower they may have ever had. I mean, my God, really?
Didn't Tim Ryan say on your show that he was the human jugs gun or something?
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. But I've never seen it in a game. And Greg tells me, okay, go watch the last 6 games of the Panther season. I did. And you know what they were able to do? They were able to run the hell out of the ball. Go back and look at the Seattle-Carolina game. They ran all over Seattle. Darnold hardly even had to throw the ball. That
for some maybe that's the game plan because, Jordan Mason looks awesome right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. Look, if you can't quarterback on this team, then you can't play. And maybe that's one of the things that they're banking on is, look, Sam, you're not with the Jets. We had to do everything. You're not with Carolina. All you got to do, man, we get a running game going. You hit, Debo on a smoke screen. You get it out to Ayuk a little bit. Christian McCaffrey and a quick route out of the slot. We've got guys all over the place. George Kittle. We drafted a couple of tight. We got this thing, man. Just get rid of the ball on time and to the right place and in an accurate fashion. But he hasn't shown the ability to do those kind of things. So I'm skeptical until further notice on Sam Darnold. And what you pointed out is a great point. Because Trey will look great in the preseason because a lot of times, and it's like you said, it's a great point about the rotations. There's only 3 of these things. They don't play a lot of guys. Some teams like the Rams don't play anybody. But, if Trey Lance gets an opportunity against 2nd, 3rd stringers, he's going to run all over them. He's going to show the arm strength. He's going to make a couple of wow plays. And all of a sudden, everyone's going to go, what the hell? But we're not behind the scenes in the practices. And that's really where they make a lot of these evaluations. The thing that sunk Trey Lance, to be honest with you, and you remember this, you were there. So Trey Lance got all this buzz. Remember all the beat writers right when he got drafted were like, this guy's ahead of schedule. He looks really good. And he's confident. He's throwing the ball all over the place. And then they went down and they had joint practices with the Chargers. And he literally, every ball was on the ground. He's throwing interceptions. They're throwing different looks at him. And I'm sure Kyle talked to the defensive Brandon, whatever his name is, down there with the Chargers, the former defensive coordinator of the Rams, who's
Brandon Staley.
Brandon Staley. and basically went to him and said, hey, throw some different looks at him. Let's see what the kid got. He had no clue what was going on. And it seems like from that point forward, he lost confidence. The team lost confidence in him. And then he was deemed a project. And he just never really came back from that. And that's the way that a lot of times he's been practicing. And we can laud the way that his throwing motion is and all that kind of stuff. I always go back to the fact that we had Colin Kaepernick's quarterback coach or throwing coach or whatever the hell on. And he said, you're going to be super surprised at the way Colin throws. It's night and day. And then right. back on the field and the pass rush came and his eyes went down and that was the end of that. So look, I'm always skeptical about these kind of things. I want to see what they do in the game, but the most fun is what you pointed out. Let's say Trey goes in and just absolutely tears it up in preseason games and the fans see that and Darnold's kind of just okay. And then they come out and announce that Darnold's going to be the starter for the time being. I mean, people are not going to be happy with that situation. And then what happens, or do they just block that out and they don't care?
What if all the quarterbacks play well? What if Brandon Allen plays well, but Darnold plays well, but Trey plays well? Then what? Then I'll say this. I'm really surprised that nobody the reports are true that nobody has come to the Niners with an attractive trade offer. You asked before what his price tag would be. He was a 3rd overall pick and he's still really, really young. I realize his cost is high, but I got to think he's worth at least a 3rd or 4th round pick for some, if the team that needs him, you know what I mean? If the Niners have a little bit of leverage at the cut down, because typically teams looking for a quarterback need a quarterback. So you want to have more rather than less, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, I'll say this. If he doesn't make it, first of all, we shouldn't be that surprised. Go look at the first round quarterbacks that have been drafted in the NFL in the last decade. There's a lot of guys, Jameis Winston. Where's he? What's he doing? Is he a star? Marcus Mariota. Is he a star?
Yeah, everybody assumes that if you're taking that high, that you're going to do it. And for every guy that's, Joe Burrow who gets taken one or whatever the case may be, there's a bunch of failures. And really, in my experience of it, and again, this too, what happens is, and this is where I think Trey is right now, I think he's lacking confidence because I've been in places where they drafted quarterbacks and they just had their confidence ruined and they just never came back from it. But the weird thing is like we can look at that draft and we can say, okay, Trevor Lawrence is really good. Zach Wilson, I don't think is ever going to be a good quarterback. New York was not a good fit for him. That offense was not a good fit for him. And they've already moved on to Aaron Rodgers. Now, is he going to sit back there for a couple of years and maybe learn from Aaron and be a decent quarterback? I don't know. I think he played his senior year at BYU behind a veteran offensive line, never got touched, and played a bunch of bad teams because BYU is an independent, and they chose a bunch of teams like Idaho State and Troy, and he just could play backyard football, show off his athleticism, and then he had a pro day where he threw it all over the place at BYU, and everybody got enamored, and they drafted Zach Wilson. Sometimes you can miss. I think that's a clear miss. You don't know with Trey. Mac Jones is on it. For all the talk of Mac Jones is maybe a poor man's Jimmy Garoppolo. He hasn't been great. So it's to your point of Trevor Lawrence has worked out. Zach Wilson, I think, is going to be a bust. Mac Jones, the jury's still out on. And hell, we don't know what Trey is going to be. So will there be a team who says, look, we had him high on our board. We're unsettled at the quarterback position. Anything that you trade for Trey Lance would have to be a conditional. So we'll give you a 6 right now. And if he plays X amount of snaps or does X amount of things, that can turn into a 2 or a 3 or something. I could see somebody doing that. But again, if you're the 49ers, and I know they love Darnold, and I know they love Purdy, but man, that would be a tough one to swallow. That's why I was surprised the Warriors did that with Wiseman. I still wouldn't have done that. He was decent in Detroit. I still don't know what he's going to be, but like the frustration of not knowing what Wiseman was ultimately going to be and that the Warriors couldn't develop him. And, oh, by the way, you're in a championship window and that guy played 3 games in college. You should have known that. You should have had more patience. Same with the 49ers. You knew when you were going to draft this guy, he hadn't played. You knew he threw 318, 319 career passes at
fewest in 40 years for a first round pick.
So you're to tell me that, okay, you wanted to move off Jimmy Garoppolo. You knew you were in a championship window. You knew you were going to have to sit this guy for a year or two. You still made the pick. You still moved from 12 to 3 and said, if it's Mac, they hadn't decided if it's Mac Jones or if it's Justin Fields or whoever the case may be, but you ultimately decided on a quarterback in which he doesn't possess a lot of the traits that Kyle Shanahan has shown in the past that he values in a quarterback. And you knew you were in a championship window. You knew you were going to have to develop the guy, but you're already out of patience on the guy. That's exactly what happened with Wiseman.
Yeah. No, and I love GP2, but I mean, come on. I mean, that talk about a short return off your off the number 2 pick in the draft. You turned it into a 30-year-old defensive 2-guard combo guard. I mean, really, that wasn't shrewd. But you never know. I mean, I'll say this: if he really can't play, if I had to bet everything that I have on one thing or another, I'm still betting that he can play, that it's just going to take him a lot of time. I really believe he's going to get there. I don't think he's a bust. But also the way the cap is, as his number goes up,
exactly right.
How much are they willing to pay him? What is it, like $10 million? Next year it's like $17 million. They're not going to pay him that much. They're not going to pay him huge amount of money to be the number 3. So it's like the clock is ticking. But if I'm like Washington, the deal that seems like would make sense to me would be like a team like Washington, where the 49ers, you traded so many draft picks to get them that you're going to look so bad. But if you could say, hey, we traded this guy for Montez Sweat and a 7th-round pick, you know what? Even though it's not a good return off what you invested, at least you could say, we got a nice pass rusher opposite Bosa. We're all in on winning the Super Bowl this year. Because I really do, as we started the conversation with, believe they are passionate about winning the Super Bowl. They lost out in 19 to the Chiefs. They lost out 1 year to injury. They lost out 1 year to the Rams. They lost out last year because of the Purdy injury in the championship game. And they feel like they've had a Super Bowl contending team, and they don't have that ring. And I agree with you. I think Jed would be a made man with his parents. I think, Kyle's career would be looked at differently. And John Lynch would check another box in his Hall of Fame resume and be worth millions to Amazon or whomever. I mean, they're all kind of made men if they get this done. I think they realize that, and it's go time. And yeah, there's an intensity around this team where it's like there's a little angst because it's like job not accomplished. They were brought here to win the Lombardi Trophy, and they haven't won the Lombardi Trophy, and it's starting to wear on them a little bit. I think they view this year as the year, and so I kind of think they may protect Purdy early, but that's going to be very, very interesting. Do they keep Lance and absorb all the verbal assaults they're going to get in September, or do they move off of Lance and try to turn him into a piece that can help them win the Super Bowl this year more? That, to me, that's my barometer, John, is that if you could find a piece that would help you win this year's Super Bowl better than what Trey Lance may potentially give you as a quarterback 3rd on the depth chart this year, then I do it. And if I don't have that, then I'll just ride with Trey on the depth chart.
Well, and let's make another comparison, because we were just doing Warriors and Wiseman. This is similar to Jordan Poole going to Washington and Chris Paul coming here. A lot of people, the long-term potential of Jordan Poole trumps Chris Paul to a lot of people. But for this 1 year, if they win a championship with CP3 on the roster after jettisoning Poole to Washington, then the trade is a success. And it's the same thing of what you just pointed out is, look, long term, I think with Trey Lance, they're going to look bad no matter what. So you can't compound the problem by just holding on to him. Like you said, rubber's going to hit the road next year when his salary jumps from about 9 to 17. And then there's a option year after that. And if Brock Purdy's healthy and playing well, then they're obviously not going to pick up that. So, and they're not going to pay $17 million to a guy who's going to be potentially 3rd on the depth chart. So at some point, there may be that trade that everybody hates, which is, okay, we're going to get a CP3, or we're going to go get a GP2, or whatever the case may be, somebody who can help us now. And yeah, we're going to take the flack for it. But if we win a championship, then it doesn't matter. And as you point out, Jed York has his family to answer to. Kyle Shanahan, his dad won a Super Bowl. Hey, Kyle, what's taking so long? John Lynch wants to go to the TV booth, but he can't do it until his career is complete as a Super Bowl winning general manager with the 49ers. They want to win a Super Bowl, and you and I both know this, and everybody that's watching knows this as well. Windows are short. Why do you think they went out and got Javon Hargrave this year and spent that kind of money? Because that was a glaring hole, and they know that they're going to say nice things about Javon Kinlaw. Javon Kinlaw ain't getting it done. We saw it in the NFC Championship game. He was on skates the entire time, and Eric Armstead can say all the nice things he wants. Jason Kelsey in the interior line of the Eagles kicked his ass, and they watched that film, and they said, we're not going anywhere with that guy in the middle of our defense. What are we going to do? And you heard this. John Lynch has said it. Kyle has said it. They were desperate, like little kids going to their parents. Hey, Jed, can we have $90 million so that we can pay Javon Hargrave? I mean, that tells you, again, you said this at the beginning here. Like they can say all they want, who they love and who they don't, and this, that, and the other. Actions speak louder. Javon Kinlaw is out of the picture. They had to get Javon Hargrave, and they fixed that situation. They are not here to develop guys. They are not here to wait on guys. Windows in any sport are what? 3 to 5 years, and everybody can say the Patriots or the Spurs or the Warriors. That's not the norm. The norm is you get yourself about a 3 to 5 year window. It's hard to maintain salary. Parag does a tremendous job with it, but it's hard to maintain. You're going to have to re-sign Bosa. He's going to make a boatload. At some point, you're going to have to pay the quarterback, and then that throws everything out of whack, just like it did in Seattle. When Russell Wilson was a third-round pick, not making much, Seattle's re-signing their defense left and right. He starts making a bunch of money, and it splinters, and that's exactly what will happen with the 49ers is all these guys are going to be due for contracts again, and they're going to want more money. And all of a sudden, you're like, we don't have the money to do it. So right now, they have this is why they're desperate. They have a cheap quarterback room that allows them to go out and get a guy like Javon Hargrave and re-sign Nick Bosa. And this is really their sweet spot, and they know it. And what starts happening is guys get more expensive. You can't keep everybody around. Younger players got to start playing. They got to start hitting on draft picks again after losing those first 2 picks. So they are in a desperate situation to win a Super Bowl. And as you pointed out, from top to bottom, there's a bunch of pressure on these guys, and they need to win now. So then say, okay, Trey Lance is your starter. It just doesn't make sense. And they're going to trust Darnold, even though I don't believe they should. And they're going to get Purdy back in there because they're just not going to allow, unfortunately, Trey to find his way and to make more mistakes. That was last year. They were willing to do it. He got hurt. They're not willing to do it again. Clearly, because they got Brandon Allen, and on the first day they got Sam Darnold. So clearly, no matter what they say, they just fortified the position with 2 veterans.
If they want to go with Purdy and Trey Lance balls out this summer and plays great, that's going to be a very interesting situation.
That's going to be great for us, right?
Right? Because then they're going to go with Trey Lance at the beginning of the year. And what if Trey Lance plays really well? And then people are like, give him another week. Give him another week. Give him another. He looks great. He's 5 and the kid's 5-0. Let Brock sit.
You advanced this. You are an expert. You have advanced this conversation to the point, and this is what's going to be fun. So let's just, because here's what I hope. I at least hope they have an open mind on Trey, that they haven't already decided we love Darnold, although everything you hear, they love Darnold. So not only will he have to overcome Purdy, to have to overcome Darnold, and I don't know what, they happen to like Brandon Allen as well. So I'm confused, but whatever. But like I said, let's say he does have a great camp. Let's say he does have a great preseason. And they say, you know what? Trey's earned the spot. And then all of a sudden, he crushes Pittsburgh, right? Like he's Jalen Hurts, right? You know, a year ago, remember,
I'm gonna get a Trey jersey if he crushes Pittsburgh in week 1.
Let's think about this. The reports come out, and I think they're accurate. Russell Wilson didn't want to go to Philadelphia. The Seahawks had a better deal with Philly than what they had with Denver, which is now, in retrospect, hard to believe because Denver stunk so bad they got a top 5 pick, all that stuff. So it worked out for Seattle, unfortunately, for 49ers fans. But if Russell Wilson goes to Philly, they never played Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts probably goes to Seattle in that trade. And so all of a sudden, it's like you weren't patient enough with Jalen Hurts. But Jalen Hurts worked and worked and worked. Now, it's a lot different going to Bama and Oklahoma and then coming into the league than it is what the path that Trey took. But let's just say, for the sake of conversation, the same thing happens. He starts, he beats Pittsburgh, he plays 2 or 3 weeks, he's lights out. Then what do? That's the best case scenario for the media and for us and for me and for you. But, I mean, that's the scenario where you go, wow, this kid's kicking butt. He's 3-0. And this very same reason that you allowed Brock Purdy to continue to play, which was he was winning, would be the same logic you would use for Trey Lance. I mean, what if he goes like, I don't know, 24-28 for 320, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and runs for 80 yards against Pittsburgh? All of a sudden you're going, I mean, can you bench that guy?
Well, not only that, then all of a sudden, guess what? The rest of the league's going to see that, and you're going to get some sweetheart offers. I mean, then you're going to sit there and go, wait a second, do we keep this guy? But if we want to go with Brock Purdy, think of every team in football that doesn't have, if Trey Lance shows, wow, he is on a, the offseason did him right. He knows the offense. He's producing touchdowns. He's on point. But the Niners want to go with Brock Purdy. I bet you the Niners would get some incredible offers because you're still, then you're talking about a young quarterback who's starting to prove that he can play. Then and then how would the Niners react? Would they want to be like, no, now that he can play, we want to keep him?
Right. See, that's and look, that's the scenario I'm sure that the 49ers like as well, because like you said, then they have a choice to make at the position, and they would likely trade Trey Lance because they are in such deep infatuation and love with Brock Purdy. But still, I mean, that's the scenario that would be great for everybody, including most so the media, because it's like, you can't. Trey Lance just went 24-28 for 300 and ran for 80 and 2 more touchdowns against the Steelers. You can't bench that guy. Like, we're going to bring back Brock in week 2. Well, wait a minute. He just crushed it. You're gonna bench that guy, man. Now that would be fun.
It's the thing about it is, and this is kind of the truth. I mean, you'll hear this sometimes from coaches, and it really is true. They'll say, you know what? I don't make the roster, guys. You do. You guys make the roster. And it sounds kind of like, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, you got the final say. But in a lot of ways, it is true. If you, in this situation, Trey's unproven. Darnold is, if he's proven, he's only proven to be bad. Brandon Allen, if he's proven, is only proven to be limited. And Purdy is the closest to being proven. But as you stated, John, based on the number of games, he's not really proven either. So you've got 4 young quarterbacks, none of which are proven. We suspect different guys have different abilities, but we don't know how it's going to go. And who knows? Who knows? Maybe this will go some direction that we're not anticipating. But in some ways, if whoever plays the best is probably going to be on the roster, but the other side of this is if they really have a conviction in Brock Purdy, and let's say all 4 quarterbacks play well, let's say Brock doesn't play at all, and the other 3 guys all play well. I think some people saying, one of the guys in the chat was like, Krueg. Where is it? Here's the one. This is it from John B. Says, if Trey is playing great, he's not getting traded. Stop it, Larry. LOL. No, I hear you, but think about it this way. If they're committed to Brock Purdy, Trey Lance playing well in the preseason probably doesn't change their commitment to Brock Purdy. And if everybody's playing well, do they keep Trey as the backup? I mean, they might. I mean, but as we stated before, he's getting more expensive. But also, if he plays well, there could be other teams that offer you a lot. So it's a very because it's quarterback and it means so much, because he's such a young player who's so inexperienced, that this could virtually go any direction. We're dealing with an unprecedented prospect as far as his inexperience and his potential upside. And also it's still quarterback in the NFL, and there's still a need. There's more jobs than there are good quarterbacks.
Well, and here's the thing too. And look, we see the preseason games, and the first name that comes to mind for you and I, and we covered this preseason together. We covered a lot of seasons together. Remember Marcus Rush, and he had like 6 sacks for the 49ers, and he was the preseason hero.
That's a great call. I'd forgotten about him altogether as a person.
He didn't make the team. And so for all the fans who are saying, hey, if he has a great preseason, you got to understand, and Kyle will talk about this all the time through the preseason, and it's not just lip service. They watch these guys in OTAs. They watch these guys in training camp. You're going against the best defense in football. They're going to, more than ever now, because there's only 3 preseason games. They're going to do this against the Raiders. August 13th is the first preseason game. They're going to scrimmage against the Raiders. They're watching every single play. So when fans say he played great in preseason, or fans say we don't know, I don't know. Fans don't know. The Niners know. And what's happening here is, and I'm just telling you things, not from my perspective, because I haven't seen enough of them, but they have. And right now, the pecking order is Brock, deep love. They really like Sam Darnold. They like Brandon Allen. And they say a lot of nice things about Trey Lance. But again, you and I have been doing this a long time. Let's use our reporter skills here. It's not what they say, it's what they do. Sam Darnold was signed on the first day of free agency. Brandon Allen was brought in, a number 2 quarterback last year with the Cincinnati Bengals. If they trusted Trey Lance in any way, shape, or form, because he's not hurt anymore and they've seen him plenty, and they've seen him for 3 years and they've watched all the throws and they've seen it. It's not just the games that we have seen. It's not just the preseason games. It's everything behind the scenes. It's how he's picking things up. It's how he is in the locker room. It's all these things. I'm not anti-Trey Lance. What I'm telling you is these are not the actions of a team that trusts him. That's all I'm saying is they brought in a number 2 quarterback from Cincinnati, signed Sam Darnold on the first day of free agency, and at every turn have said how much in love they are with Brock Purdy. And they say nice things about Trey Lance because they don't want to tank his value if he does play well in the preseason. I like the guy. I only fear that it's going to be a James Wiseman situation or a Jordan Poole situation where they finally, as you pointed out, say, you know what, we just can't deal with the distraction. They want to win a Super Bowl in such a desperate fashion that they just don't feel like they have time to develop Trey Lance at the same time. You know what that sounds like? The Warriors. Let's try to develop and win. Let's try to develop and win. What did they do? They scrapped it. They traded Wiseman. They traded Poole. They brought in Paul, and they're all in on Steph Curry's timeline. The Niners is the same thing, man. They may not have the guys getting older like what's happening with the Warriors, but they are just as desperate as the Warriors to win a championship. The Warriors are against the time clock to get Curry another one. The 49ers are in like a 3 to 5 year window where they're just going to pay Nick Bosa. They just paid Hargrave. They're taking advantage of a cheap quarterback room. And like you pointed out, Purdy in a few years, remember his deal's a 4-year deal because he's a 7th round pick. You got 3 years to win in the Brock Purdy timeline, as weird as that sounds, before he gets really expensive. And if Sam Darnold's pretty good, then he's going to get expensive. You've got to take advantage of a window in which quarterbacks are really cheap, and they did that by the Hargrave signing, but they don't feel like they have a lot of time to get this thing done. So again, it's just a timeline thing with Trey where they don't feel comfortable. And if you don't believe me, why'd they sign Brandon Allen and why did they sign Sam Darnold and fortify this quarterback room? I like Trey Lance. I wish he would play, but they're telling you without telling you, they just don't trust him.
Yeah, no, I spot on. I think you're absolutely right. Charlie says Lund is speaking facts, and then he says sorry. Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. Be celebrative that we have Johnny with us on this night. Okay, let's hit the super chats. A bunch of people have things to say and money to donate, so let's get this out of the way. Mark Hope says super sticker. I don't think he said super sticker. I think he just sent a super sticker. Okay. And I'm not exactly sure what the super sticker is, but it sounds super and it also sounds sticky. I will say that. There you go. Mark Lopez says, Larry, would you rather trade Lance and watch him blossom elsewhere, but guarantee one ring in the Kyle era, or start Lance and potentially waste the prime years of your stars to develop Lance? Well, okay, first of all, there's no such this is the NFL. The idea that you're gonna waste a year to develop a young player, that's you could have done that in year one of the regime, but you can't do that inside of a Super Bowl window with some of the NFL's greatest stars on your roster. There'd be a mutiny. I mean, I from what I heard, there were people that were complaining after the Chicago game that that they wanted to go that they were going to go in more of a developmental direction. So we'll see. But I would say there's no chance of tanking the year to develop Trey Lance. I am sorry. I don't even know that would have been wise in any year, to be honest.
You can do that when you're young. You can do that when you're winning 2 or 3 games. You can sacrifice, even though they wouldn't call it that. You can do those kind of things. Arizona's going to tank this year and try to get Caleb Williams. I mean, there's those kind of things that happen, but not in this window. And again, I don't think we're overstating this because you and I are down there a lot, and we both know a lot of people within the organization. They are desperate to win a Super Bowl, and they feel like right now is their time. And as I just pointed out, don't need to go back over, because of the way the salary structure is, because it's a cheap quarterback room, they just feel like right now they're in the bullseye position. Outside of what's going on with the quarterback position, many people feel like, I think Pro Football Focus did this, ESPN did this with Bill Barnwell, they are the most talented team in the NFL. But the quarterback position remains a question mark. But they are, how many times are you deemed the most talented team in the league? Because if you look at non-quarterback, skill position players, they're number one. Just across the board, they're number one. Defensive line, they're getting back into it. You could make an argument that as far as the linebackers are concerned, they're number one. Lenore came on. Their corners are much better than they've been. Brown has seemed like he's going to get it at the safety position. They bring back Gibson, Hafunga. Gibson's getting older. I mean, they're just in this bullseye position, in this position where they are really have a great mix of young and old. They're right there with one of the best coaches in the league, personnel guys in the front office. They are right there. And that's going to continue to be torn apart in the front office. And you pointed this out perfectly. Jed's under pressure from the people that all these people are like, Jed, what's going on, man? We won those. How come you haven't? Kyle Shanahan, his dad's going, hey, you got one of these? No, you don't. John Lynch is going, hey, man, I need to get some of that Amazon money. Could we win one of these things? I mean,
we're talking about lifetime validation for these people.
Right. And it's top to bottom, and it just doesn't last very long. Seattle is on the rise. Seattle is right there. The Rams aren't going to be down for long. Philadelphia is really good. Green Bay just lost Aaron Rodgers. There's a window there. There's a window sitting right there for the 49ers. They know it, and they're desperate to win this thing. So they're going to do everything they can to get in the right players. And to go back to the question of Trey Lance, look, I would not want to trade Trey Lance, but I thought you brought up a hell of a point, which is if there is, let's say there's an injury, and in the NFL, it's different than the other sports. You are going to lose key players. It's not if, it's when. And if a key player is lost, and Trey Lance has a great preseason, and somebody says, you know what, I'll give you X for that, and you can fill a hole because you've had a key injury at some sort of position, the 49ers are going to jump on that quick because they want to win a Super Bowl. And look, you can make the debates of, hey, would you rather, you're going to watch Trey Lance develop, and he might be great for 10 years somewhere, just like Jordan Poole might be great wherever he's going to eventually end up. He's with the Wizards right now. It doesn't matter if you win a title. If you win one title, if you're the Warriors and Chris Paul this year, and he helps you win a title, that trade is validated, and Jordan Poole can go on to be Michael Jordan for the next 4 years, and it doesn't matter. And it's the same thing with Trey Lance. If Trey Lance blossoms somewhere else and is great for 10 years, and you go, man, we had that guy. If they win a Super Bowl, which is the goal of this whole thing this year, and they had to move him to do it, and that player came in and actually contributed, and the NFL is different because you are going to have injuries, and you could fill a hole during the season, and Trey can help you do that, then you're going to do that every single time given the window that the 49ers are in. And if they hoist that Super Bowl trophy, it don't matter. It just doesn't. I mean, look at the Cubs in 2016. They brought in Chapman. Chapman went right back to the Yankees. They gave up Gleyber Torres. They don't care. They ended what was it, 1908? They have a World Series. That's the goal. And so every time someone complained about trading Trey Lance and how great he became, all you have to do is go, we won a Super Bowl that year. Now, if you end up short of that Super Bowl and you move him and he's great for 10 years, then you have some explaining to do, Lucy.
Well, and then this is what it takes in 2023 to win a Super Bowl. These franchises are going all in. The Rams 2 years ago were all in on that season. Definitely Kansas City last year was all in on that season.
Right. So whoever they lost, nobody remembers because they won a Super Bowl.
Right.
That's what it comes down to is you do everything you can to win that thing. And we have these debates all the time. Would you rather make the playoffs for 10 years and be really good or whatever? Would you rather win a championship? Teams want to win championships. Remember those Braves teams that won one? They had such great players from that pitching staff to Andrew Jones to Chipper Jones. They won one. And at least they won one, but it's we'd have thought they'd won, or the A's, when they won one in the 3 years going,
where's the bowl this year? Vegas?
Yeah.
Could you imagine the Niners in Vegas? Being in Vegas after the Niners win number 6? That would be the greatest night of all time.
Oh, the Raiders would hate that so bad. Celebrating on the Raiders field. To win that Super Bowl, celebrating.
Niner fans would go there and just flock there. Hotel rooms for days. You don't care if you don't even care if you had tickets to the game. You're just like, we're going to Vegas.
No. Right. You just be there to hang out. I mean, that is going to be, and you and I have been to a lot.
Rent a car. You couldn't even get a flight probably. You have to drive.
I mean, I wouldn't even know what to do. I mean, and I give the Niners fans travel so well. I went to that Raiders game this year. It was bananas. I mean, it was 80% 49ers fans, if not more than that. And when that was a back and forth game, went to overtime and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I can't even imagine what the Super Bowl would sound like in there because the 49ers fans would just take that thing over.
Oh, it'd be so cool. I haven't been down to that stadium. Have you gone yet?
Yeah, I went to the Niners and the Raiders last year and did
Is it
pregame.
cool? Is it a cool stadium?
Yeah, I got it. It's not SoFi, that's for sure. SoFi, I think right now is the gold standard of it all. And again, you and I have been down there. Um, it's nice. It's not as nice as what SoFi is, but it gives you a similar feel. The light is coming in, but it's loud. I think it's louder. It's a little bit smaller of a stadium, and it just to me it seemed really loud. And what's cool about it is the press box is an open air press box. So in other words, when you're in there, you're not closed off. Like when you go to Levi Stadium, for those who don't know, you and I for years sit behind this glass, and you have to almost go to where Greg and Tim are broadcasting because they have the window open to kind of get a sense of how loud the crowd actually is. In Las Vegas, the entire press box is open. It's covered, so the whole thing is open. So you're getting just the wave of sound. So
That's
anytime
cool.
the 49ers would make a play, I mean, it was like, and you're just like, wow, it's just overwhelming how loud that stadium is. And it's not, it's where SoFi is so vast. It can get loud, but not quite as loud. But this thing's a little bit tighter, and that sound it's almost like Seattle is a little bit, where that sound just comes right back down onto the field.
We got a few more here. Mike Monahan, the reason Brock always rolled left is the right side was caved in. Mark Hope, London Krug on the 49ers is fire. Mark Hope again. He says Pittsburgh, LA, New York, Arizona, Dallas, Cleveland, Minnesota, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Tampa Bay, Seattle, Philadelphia, Seattle, Arizona, Baltimore, Washington, LA. This is not John Lund's radio career. This is
close.
A concerning schedule to me. Thoughts on the Niners quarterbacks against this schedule? I don't know. What do you think of this? I mean, to me, I had a whole breakdown on the schedule. I don't even remember what I thought about the schedule. But there's definitely a tough stretch in there where the Niners have a number of games in a row that look tough. But the one thing to me, analyzing the schedule, in advance is just so pointless because, like, you're going to play Cincinnati. Are they going to have Joe Burrow? Are they not?
Right.
And what did they happen? What happened the week before? Are they desperate to win? Are they not? I guess the one that to me that seems like a very tough game to win is week 1 because you're at Heinz Field against the Steelers. Steelers have won I think they're 8-2 or something like that in home openers, and or 13-1 in home openers or something like that, and when it's at Heinz Field in week 1, so they're really tough to beat in week 1 at home. So to me, that one looks like a really tough game. I didn't see any real terrible cold weather games. What do you think of the schedule as far as, first of all, it's the Niners quarterback. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. If it's Darnold, I think they'll throw it a little bit more if it's Purdy. But they also have the number 1 defense in football, or at least have, and added Javon Hargrave. So they're probably going to be okay.
Look, all due respect to all those teams, the Niners can win any game that they play because, like you said, they pack a defense. They bring in Javon Hargrave, and you made a great point. And again, other sports aren't like this. Well, the NBA is to a point. You can almost look at an NBA schedule and you can tell when players are going to be rested and when teams are going to lose and all those kind of things. Really, it's almost kind of baked in. But I don't know who's going to be available. I don't know who's going to be hurt. I don't know when Brock Purdy's going to be back. But look, they should be Pittsburgh. I think I don't know what the Rams are going to be. They lost Jalen Ramsey and a bunch of guys. They're paying the price for winning that Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Is Stafford going to be healthy? I don't know. He was having elbow issues, so I don't know all those things. And then I gauge everything based on the division. I think Seattle is going to be better. I think they had another good draft. I like Witherspoon. I like
Witherspoon's a man.
They're going to have offensive talent. Smith and Jigba, the UCLA running back that they got in the second round to go with Ken Walker.
Charbonnet,
yep. They're going to be good. Now, I think their defensive line is lacking a little bit. I think they kind of, Jalen Carter could have been the guy they grabbed, but Philly got him. So, look, you're going to play Philly. I think, look, the division, the Rams are probably going to be a 500 or less team. You should sweep them as you often do. Arizona's going to be vying for the first pick. You should easily sweep them, but they're kind of a pain in the ass sometimes. Seattle's going to be a dogfight. You probably split that one this year after beating them, 3 times last year. And then you got to play Philly and all those things. But the Bucs are on the schedule. Baker Mayfield's going to have the Bucs. It just comes down to, as you pointed out very astutely, that it comes down to when you're playing these guys and what injuries do you have, because it's not when, it's not if, it's when, as far as injuries are concerned. And if you're really banged up in a certain game, then a team that shouldn't beat you is going to beat you. And so it's always fun to play that schedule game when it comes out. But the reality is it's not overly accurate because a lot of things happen in an NFL season that just don't happen. Like, I know when Steph Curry's going to rest. I know when Draymond Green's like, you can predict those things. Oh, that's a 3 and 4. Yeah, Steph ain't playing that. Oh, that game's in Denver after a back-to-back in Denver. Steph ain't playing. Like, you can see those things on an NBA schedule. The NFL, what if Bosa's out? I mean,
right.
I shudder to think.
I mean, it's
right when
the any given Sunday argument. It's, I remember that, my good friend, the late Bill Urbanic, used to say, it's the way you play the day you play. It's like, which means absolutely nothing, by the way. But that's just, in other words, you never know. Yeah, you never know. We could sit here and analyze the schedule, but there's certain interesting things sometimes, like the Jets have a really favorable rest schedule. I saw that. But a lot of these things are overanalyzed. I really do believe if you get into a good rhythm early, that things change. If you lose a bunch of games early, teams tend to bounce back. They dig a little deeper. They found a way to win. So, I mean, you could just get unlucky in that you go up against teams that it was their week to win. Like, you're facing some team and they were 0-3, and then suddenly you're facing another team and they were 0-4. And all of a sudden you're getting up against all these super hard pressed teams and they're fighting like to the death. And you wind up losing a couple of games you shouldn't lose, or that you on paper maybe you shouldn't lose. It's hard to measure.
I mean, look at the teams they lost to last year, especially early. Chicago stunk. Denver stunk.
Yeah.
They lost to those two teams.
Right.
It's like early in the season. And this is what I mean by the desperation of the 49ers early in the season. That's been talked about a lot down there. They don't want to lose to a Chicago equivalent this year early in the season. They don't want to lose to a Denver equivalent early in the season. They felt like if they had won those two football games, that game would have been at Levi's Stadium, and it would have been a totally different outcome, and they would have rematched with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That's the viewpoint they have. And so, again, to go back to this whole window thing and the way that they believe, they are desperate to win, and they want to win early in the season, and they're going to go with the quarterback that gives them the best chance. And, again, I like Trey Lance. We all want to see Trey Lance, but the 49ers don't trust Trey Lance. And so early in the season, those games are really important to them to get off to that start, because let's go back to 2019 when they went to the Super Bowl. They smoked everybody, man. They got home field advantage. They took care of Minnesota, no problem, took care of Green Bay, no problem, and rolled into that Super Bowl. And that's the same thing they want to do.
Yeah, no question. Randy Daytona, Krug, you motorboating son of a bitch, you. You rock, buddy. All right, thank you there. We got this one, JW. Love the Brock is a product of Kyle's scheme crowd, and in the same breath they say fire Kyle. Yeah,
who says that? I mean,
there's people. Come on. There's the hey, Kyle sucks, and then there's the Brock's no good. Well, you know what? I would say maybe one of those could be true, but they both can't be true. You know what I mean? It's like Kyle can't be terrible and Brock also be terrible because somehow they wound up in the NFC Championship game. SF Mania says Larry treats Purdy like he just won a Super Bowl against Brady and deserves a pass. Well, I do. I'm a fan of Purdy. What can I say?
Motorboating son of a bitch.
I'm guilty as charged. Adam Paul says, Larry, what's up, man? Pig in a pickle, baby. There you go. We're shouting about barbecue.
I love barbecue. Man.
Truth. Larry's gonna buy a JP Mason jersey. I'm gonna buy a Trey Lance jersey if he wins week 1.
Let me tell you something, Mason, and I know you love Mason.
I love Mason.
Dude, if he gets a chance, he's north-south. He's good.
He's powerhouse. He's an absolute powerhouse. And if you meet the kid, just like nicest kid ever. In fact, he and Jahmyr Gibbs shared time at Cheat Tech. Yeah. I would not be surprised if both those guys bust out huge this year. J-Dub says Giovanni Carmazzi was our future.
The goat farmer.
4 Ace Windu says, if you don't like Purdy, you're not a Niner fan. Get the fuck out. All right. It's a little bit of a my way or the highway, but I kind of agree. Alex Grolon says, I like this video, guys. And Brock Purdy is fool's gold. Says Trey Lance stats week 1 if he starts will be 13 of 31, 47 yards and 3 picks. Mark Hope is a new channel member. I always give my new channel members a little clap. Mark Hope, welcome aboard. Emptying the clip tonight on the show. Adam Paul says if Trey comes to a point where he needs to get paid, but still doesn't have enough game time experience to be evaluated, will anyone give him a contract? I don't think so. That's at least the feeling that I'm getting from around the league is that that's not that he wouldn't, but that's speculative. Trox is someone's getting dealt
last year. I mean, that's the end of next year. I mean, this is his third year, fourth year, and then a fifth-year option. And look, somebody would pick him up. I mean, somebody's going to give him a chance. It's just like you say,
at what price? And
yeah, if they move him, I mean, they're going to probably have to redshirt him this entire year to learn that offense, and then he'd have a chance maybe in his fourth year, and then who knows if he doesn't get a chance then he's going to be on the scrap heap regardless.
Yeah. Trox is someone who's getting dealt. Who brings the most trade value? I'd say Lance easily. I mean Purdy, but they're not trading Purdy. Jay Stamps says Rams need a quarterback. Did Stafford get hurt today?
No, I mean everybody's just talking about his elbow and all that kind of thing. And then I think it was Florio who came out and God, this thing just will not die. Came out and talked about Kirk Cousins, and he thinks that at the end of next year there's going to be a war between the Rams and the 49ers for Kirk Cousins services. Man, it's just like, look, Kyle has moved on. It's like a divorce, and everybody wants to know, Kyle, I think you're still in love with your ex-wife. It's like, look, Kirk Cousins doesn't win big games. Kirk Cousins wants to come in here and be a backup for $5 million. Fine. But I mean, if you want to talk about a mutiny, you were talking about a mutiny before. You want to talk about a mutiny. If next year they, let's say Purdy has an okay year, not great, and they bring in Kirk Cousins. Oh my God. Like, I don't know what, like Florio, he wouldn't let the Brady thing die. He just brings these things up over and over. And I like Mike. He comes on our show. You've had him on your shows a lot of times. Yeah. He doesn't know jack about what's going on in the 49ers.
No, seriously.
And it's like, look, Cousins is 36, 37 by now. It's like the dude's moved on. He really has. I mean, they have 4 quarterbacks right now that I think the 49ers like. And I don't see any way that Cousins comes in. And if Cousins goes somewhere, I mean, look, I'm not saying he's a horrible quarterback, but like people saying that Kirk Cousins belongs in the Hall of Fame, watch the damn game.
Oh, my God. The guy's won no playoff games. He wins no big games. I like him. I like Kirk Cousins. I've done a couple of really enjoyable Super Bowl week radio interviews with him. Really cool dude, really chill guy. I think he's a cool guy. But you know what? He just doesn't win big games. He makes a ton of cash. They did go 13-3 last year with the 32nd defense in the league, but he had Justin Jefferson.
All 1-score wins. Those come back. Those will come back.
My whole thing is that I would say Kirk Cousins to the Niners is like a 5% chance of happening. And that is the only way he's here is if Purdy this year shows that he's a backup, Trey shows that he's not an NFL player, Darnold shows that he's not an NFL player, Brandon Allen can't play at all. They have no quarterbacks at all, and they don't want to go in the draft, and Jed's getting nervous. Then Kyle goes to Cousins next year. Other than that, I think there's a chance he's here.
Yeah, you just talked me into it. He's going to be their quarterback next year. Florio just won't let it die. I mean, until he retires, like he'll always do that. Just like he did with Brady to the Niners and even Rodgers to the Niners. It's just like he is the most like, I'm not saying he's not dialed into certain teams, and you know this. I mean, there's certain guys who are dialed into certain teams. There are certain guys who are dialed into the Niners. Although I will say that the 49ers have really tighten things up to a pretty high extent in terms of what leaks out of the place. Like the way it used to be was unbelievable. But I think they've tightened things up pretty well, but I just don't think Florio's dialed. The 49ers are not one of the teams that Florio's dialed into. He just throws things against the wall when it comes to them.
He's clearly not connected. Mark Hope says, Larry and Lund, why isn't Tom or Aaron a Niner? I mean.
They turned it down. I mean, a couple of years ago when they had an opportunity and Jimmy took him to the Super Bowl, or the Niners got to the Super Bowl despite Jimmy, I should say. They had an opportunity right then and there before Tom became a Buccaneer, and Tom wanted to become a 49er, and the 49ers said they looked into it because they look into everything, and they declined. And they went with Jimmy. That's a true story that Brady was saying, I'll come right before he went to the Bucs. He was a free agent and had finished up. And remember, he played really poorly in that Titans playoff game. Everyone thought he was done, and he came to the 49ers and said, look, I want to play here. I want to finish my career here. And the 49ers said, no, we're okay. And then the next year after that, after Jimmy wasn't good, then they drafted Trey Lance. So
was Jimmy the MFer? Was he the MFer that Brady was referring to, or was that somebody else?
I think it was. I think that probably was Jimmy. Or some people say it was Carr. Maybe it was Carr.
I know. I've heard people say Carr. Mark Hope says, look at the AFC quarterbacks and then ask if and when the Niners win a Super Bowl. Well, I don't think it's as simple as that. I mean, but
You
I'll
only have
say
to play
this.
ball.
Some non-superstar quarterbacks typically win a Super Bowl once every decade. So maybe Brock Purdy can be the one time that this decade that a non-superstar wins. Though I do have high hopes for Brock. We got this one from Remix Channel. Larry's a headline machine. Let's effing go. All right, there you go. And
Pretty
Mark
good.
Hope emptying the clip says, my follow-up, how is 23 different from 22? Well, that's a good question. I think it's
You'll
going to
give
be
Brock
different
Purdy very
because
championship
well, let
game.
me give you my theory on this. The 49ers the last couple of years have added a ton of good young players to their football team. The arrow is pointing up on so many guys. There are so many guys that are in their second or third year that if we just see incremental improvement across the board, the 49ers are going to overwhelm the NFC and be, this is their year. They've maximized the roster. They got the cheap quarterback, they have superstar talent, and they have quality depth throughout the entire roster. There's very few, that's like juggling like plates, multiple plates on your fingers to be able to have a young quarterback that you can win with, that you believe in, and then the superstar, array that they have, and then still be relatively deep at almost every spot. They've done the personnel thing. John Lynch needs to be commended. Peters as well. They've done the personnel thing to perfection. They just haven't gotten the ring. They got to get the ring. They got to finish it.
Well, Krug, I mean, plus, look at this whole thing. I know that Brock Purdy is not going to have thrown in the entire offseason, but once he's healthy, he's going to be a better player because he played those games last year. Christian McCaffrey is here for an entire year. Some of those young players, Spencer Burford is going to be better. The interior of the offensive line in general has worked together. Now, McKivitz, I have a little bit of, there's no doubt, I'm a little bit nervous about what happens at right tackle. And look, McGlinchey unfairly gets ripped, but I mean, he was solid at the very worst at right tackle. Denver gave him a ton of money, but I think the rest of the offensive line is going to be better. They just brought in Javon Hargrave for Javon Kinlaw. That's a massive upgrade. Drake Jackson should be better. I mean, people forget that guys.
Kalia Davis, Marcelino.
I mean,
there's a lot of guys, so the arrow's pointing up.
Well, not only that, I mean, even a guy who was as good as like Fred Warner was, he was good his rookie year. He was awesome his second year, and that's what you're hoping for. Diamonor Lenore has solidified the quarter position, opposite Mooney man. So I mean, look, you're missing Jimmy Ward. I don't think that's great. McGlinchey, I don't think you're as good at right tackle. But everywhere else, I mean, Brandon Ayuk is going into a prove-it year for himself. He's getting better and better. Debo Samuel's already come out and said he didn't have a very good year last year, and he's going to be better this year. When Debo is focused and in shape, as good as he is, he can get out of shape. He can get big. And he was last year. He wasn't in optimal shape. He's going to come back in better shape. Christian McCaffrey, all the videos that you see of McCaffrey, he's working his butt off. He's going to be much more comfortable in this offense. There's going to be things that Kyle can do with him last year that because he didn't know the offense well enough, he couldn't do last year. I mean, this team's better. I mean, flat out, this team is
there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent here. And there's talent here that people don't even know about. Ronald Awatt and Kalen Layburn, these two undrafted rookie running backs, are both damn good. Ronnie Bell is a hell of a receiver. This kid Wagee is the D lineman from North Dakota State. I'm telling you, that guy's legit. And the corner Jameson from Texas is legit. I mean, these are guys that nobody's even factoring in. They're just like guys that they just picked up. So, I mean, I can't wait. It's going to be
I think they're better at tight end. I think one of these
way better at tight end. Yeah, that's a great call.
Are going to step up. Look, Robbie Gould was an automatic machine. However, if you believe all the hype that's coming with the 49ers and the Moody kid, maybe he's not as reliable inside 53, but outside then that was Robbie's limit. So now you could be looking at 55 yarders and things like that. And maybe, just maybe, and you and I sat there all the time, you and I, in that booth at games and say, why is Kyle so conservative? Because he had Robbie Gould, who would hit anything inside, 50 and under. Robbie was guaranteed. If he's got less of a reliable kicker, I wonder if Kyle is going to go for it on 4th and 2 or 4th and 3 and be a little bit more aggressive, especially given all the offensive weapons now that he has and is comfortable with. I think we may see a more aggressive Kyle Shanahan this year as well.
Yeah, that would be great to see. I want to see him go for it more on 4th down, especially outside of his own 30-yard line on anything less than 4th and 5. I'd love to see that rugby scrum play, the Eagles run, where you get the first run, the second run, the third. I mean, that thing's unstoppable if you can just hold your feet. Johnny, great stuff on the Niners. We'll finish on just a quick thought on Giants and Warriors. Giants. Let's start with the Giants. I mean, wow. I mean, the incredible homestand. Matos looks great. Bailey is just a monster behind the plate. Schmidt, I love Schmidt. I read today Kyle Harrison and Carson Wisenhunt both going to the futures game. The two young aces. I mean, big time lefties. They're going to get the call up at some point. I mean, Luciano's getting close. I mean, the farm system came to the rescue at just the right time for Gabe and Farhan. Are the Giants going to make a big July trade and somehow? I mean, they're in the playoffs right now, but are they going to win the division? I mean, and I can't believe I'm even saying that, but here we are, late June. They got as good a shot as anybody.
Yeah, and I was there on Saturday and Sunday. I went there Saturday with the family, and then Sunday I actually took my son to kind of show him how to recover a baseball game. So the buzz around there was really cool. They got about 35 per, so it's not completely back to the numbers that it was, but they're creating a ton of buzz on this whole thing. And as you said, everybody's kind of stepping up as far as young guys. I think maybe Casey Schmidt might go back to the minors because Diaz playing third base, had a bunch of non-competitive bats on Sunday, and so. I think Schmidt's got to get some playing time. There's a book on Casey Schmidt. He knows what he needs to work on, so maybe he goes down. But like you said, Matos looks legitimate. Patrick Bailey ain't going anywhere. They're going to have to trade Joey Bart at some point. I like this team. The one thing that would give me pause for concern, and they're going to do this tomorrow again in Toronto, is Ryan Walker is going to get the start. I know what their record is, again, with the opener and all these kind of things. But when you look at where the staff is and where this bullpen is going to be, they're going to get gassed. Because you got Logan Webb and he's giving you 7, and hopefully Cobb will come back and he can give you 6. DeSclafani got hit around a little bit early, but then he settled himself in. But he's only good for probably 5. Alex Wood only gets you 2 times through the order. So what are you going to do? Do openers twice a week and burn out your pen? I mean, one of the reasons I think they lost yesterday on Sunday was they had to keep Tristan back into the game because they had used Taylor Rogers the day before. And so Ketel Marte, left-handed hitter, hits a home run to extend that lead. And then you got Corbin Carroll in there. He's a left-hander. I mean, they had opportunities to kind of mix and match Bruce Bochy style. But I think that what's important, and if people should look this up, what's their record after the opener? Because on Saturday to win that game, they used 7 pitchers. So on Sunday now, you got to keep Tristan back a little bit longer in because you're trying to save your bullpen. That's all well and good right now. But what is that going to look like in July and in August and September? Your pen's going to be gassed. And so, I'd love it if they'd go out and get a Marcus Stroman or somebody like that. I don't know if they can because there's so many teams vying, but I'd like to see them try to go out and get a solid starter. I know they're getting Ross Stripling back. I'm not a huge fan of Stripling. We'll see what he does. But they've got to get some help on the front end of this whole thing. And they love doing this, but they've got all these bulk inning guys. So now Ross Stripling's coming back. He's a bulk guy, and Tristan Beck's a bulk guy, and Wynn's a bulk guy, and Manaya's a bulk guy. Junis is a bulk guy. How about getting a couple of starters?
Yeah.
Old school, but can we get a couple of starters and stop this crap?
I would love to see him go after like a Lucas Giolito, and I would even pay big time and see if I could get Andrew Vaughn. Because if you could get Giolito and Vaughn, or Giolito and Cease and Vaughn, anything big time like that from the White Sox. Giants and White Sox have hooked up on a number of deals.
Yeah.
Seems like through history. I'd give up Luciano. You know what I mean? I would give up. Yeah, I would, because I think getting to the playoffs right now is really a crucial thing for the Giants. And I'm not sure that Luciano's going to be – I think he's going to have great bat speed, but I think you're talking about a left fielder. I don't think he's going to be a shortstop or a third baseman. I think he's a left fielder. He's had some back problems. He's really enticing, and that's a lot, to be honest. I mean, Giolito, Andrew Vaughn, and Dylan Cease, you're going to have to pay something big time to get those guys, and he'd be the premier guy that I'd be willing to move.
And I'll give you a little bit of insight in this. I was talking to a friend of mine on Sunday who covers the Diamondbacks, and he said he thinks they're a year early. He says he doesn't think that they just don't have the financial wherewithal to go out and get some big name. He says they'll probably make a move. They could fortify their bullpen or do something small like that. But he said, really, the Diamondbacks, they want to get the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. It's just that he feels like they're a year early, and he doesn't think that they're going to go out and spend a bunch of money. We know that the Dodgers want to get Ohtani. So, again, I'm not saying the Dodgers won't make a move, because if you look at the years under Andrew Friedman, where they went out and got Darvish, and they went out and got Machado, and they went out and got Scherzer, I mean, they've gone out and been really aggressive at the trade deadline. But again, a friend of mine who covers the Dodgers said that he doesn't think they're going to be overly aggressive because they don't want any. Well, if they are, they're going to do it for short-term rentals because they don't want to give up. They've built that system up again. Bobby Miller's not going anywhere, and that kid that threw 6 innings for the Dodgers of no hit ball against the Giants isn't going anywhere.
Sheehan,
Emmett Sheehan. They've got a bunch of guys that they really like, and they want to keep their payroll number down because they're going to make a big run at Ohtani. So they may do something minor, not major. Arizona, I don't think, is going to do anything major. We had Bob Melvin on the other day on our show. He sounds completely frustrated by that team. I think they're going to make a run because their hitting is what is holding them back, which is crazy to think. So I think that they feel like they're fortified as long as their players start to play well. So just looking at the West itself, I would have thought at the beginning of the season that if they could get a wild card, that would be a great thing. I think the NL West is there to be won.
Yeah, that's funny. Ned Coletti wants to bet me. He's like, Dodgers are going to have a 5-game lead at the break. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? But then it's because he's Ned and he's so smart. I'm thinking about, wait a second. He's going to know something I don't know.
He knows
so
this.
I'm in the midst of studying it, but I'm looking at it right now going, I think I'm going to have to take that bet, Ned. I mean, seriously, Giants are 44 wins, and they're 2.5 back. Dodgers have 43 wins. They're 3 back. They're basically neck and neck. Dodgers are going to outplay the Giants by 5 games before the break. Aren't we like 2.5, 3 weeks until the break?
I don't think that I would take that bet only because the Dodgers are still banged up. I mean, we saw in that series. I mean, Freddie Freeman is still there, and Mookie Betts is still there, and Will Smith is still there. And look, I got a lot of respect for the young pitching that they have, but the thing that would scare me would be more the second half because when's Dustin May coming back and is Buehler going to come back? And
not till September, they're saying for Buehler.
Yeah, so, look, I think they're going to get fortified with some guys, but still in the Giants-Dodgers series, I saw a bunch of guys wearing numbers in the 80s. Like, Michael Busch was wearing like 83 and they had some outfielder wearing like 89. It's like, what is this, spring training? I mean, they have a bunch of guys that are banged up, so I don't know that they're going to make their move now. And then, like I said, again, this person is just telling me what they're talking about right now, but they want Ohtani, and they're not going to trade him at the deadline, the Angels, but they're gearing up in the offseason, so they're not going to add a bunch of big contracts at the deadline. They may get some rentals like they have done in the past. Darvish was a rental. Machado was a rental. Scherzer was a rental. I don't even know if they'll go that high into things because, again, they like where their farm system is, especially with their young pitching. So I don't know that they're going to give any of those guys kind of up. But I don't expect the Dodgers to make a major sign or a major trade like they normally do. Arizona, I don't think, has the financial wherewithal. And then you and I talk about this all the time. How aggressive does Farhan want to be? I mean, does he want to go call Scott Harris on Marcus Stroman? Does he want to, say, let's get Dylan Cease for the long term? What do they value in starting pitching? Because every time you talk to Gabe Kapler, he says, we feel good about everything. Well, I don't feel good about Ross Stripling, and I don't feel good. I mean, and I'm talking about to win at a high level, not to maybe get to the playoffs, but Manaea's fine, and Stripling's fine, and Tristan Beck is fine, and Keaton
They need more pitching. I mean, they clearly need more pitching.
You can't continue to roll out Wood, who's going to go twice through the rotation, and 2 bullpen games per week or opener games per week, and think that your bullpen is not going to be in the grave by August. That's not going to happen. They're going to.
MF says Aroldis Chapman. I'd love to get Aroldis. I think the Giants should have signed Aroldis in the offseason. They should have had the foresight to do that. Instead, he went to Kansas City. Now you got to trade for him. But could you imagine Aroldis? The Rogers brothers pitching well. They just lost Luke Jackson. But could you imagine if you had Aroldis Chapman leading into Doval? I mean, that would be very, very cool. Final thought. Oh, go ahead.
That wouldn't cost you a ton. I mean, he's in Kansas.
No.
Move him anyway. You got that followed by Duvall. He's coming from the left side. Duvall's coming from the right side.
That would be awesome to watch.
By the way, we were down. I know we got to jump here, but we were down low watching Duvall pitch. It's like the guy's playing catch, and all of a sudden the ball comes out of his hand like a fireball, man. It's just like he just is kind of nice and easy, and it's just like by you. I mean, we're sitting there in the stand going, "Are you serious? Like someone's supposed to hit that?" And then he throws like a bender. And it's just like, the guy's geared up for 101 at the letters, and all of a sudden he's throwing you an 89-mile-an-hour slider that you're like, this is not fair.
Credit the Giants, too, because in April, that guy looked like he was bothered by the pitch clock, and like it looked like it could be a long year. He's made the adjustment. he's just awesome. He's like NL All-Star for sure. I mean, that guy was absolutely incredible.
That's a great question great thought on the text line there, is just that you look at a situation where Chapman wouldn't cost you a whole lot. You get another power arm coming out of the pen, a guy who has experience in a World Series. I mean, that would be a big time move. But I still think you go starting pitcher to some extent because you're going to burn your pen, but you could always add pen pieces. And that's never a bad idea because, like right now, Jackson's out, Brebbia's out. You're always shuffling guys in and out. If you can bring another pen arm in, so that you can fortify your bullpen and have an extra deep pen going into the playoffs, that's massive.
All right, give us some thoughts on the Warriors real quick. They went with the kid from Santa Clara at 19. We're trying to get him on the show later this week. Bill Duffy's his agent, a buddy of mine, and then of course TJD, Trace Jackson Davis. I really like Trace Jackson Davis. I thought that was a steal. I was listening to you guys, you and Greg, talking about the Poole trade, and Poole. I mean, Greg really doesn't like the Poole-Paul trade, but I think that he's not looking at it the right way. He's just looking at it like young guy for old guy. But in reality, I think if you got to look at it this way, Draymond leveraged it, and if Draymond leaves, then Steph's pissed. And if Steph's pissed, then your whole thing is just crumbles. So you got to have Steph being happy. And that means that when Draymond leveraged the whole thing, you got to side with Draymond. Now, if Draymond leaves, I'll agree that that's a disaster trade. But if Draymond returns, like I think he will, the window stays open. You save your owner $100 million. I look at Jordan Poole as a broken player. Greg looks at him like he's a star. I think he's a guy that loves to be Steph Curry, and he ain't. And he doesn't love to do what he's really good at, which is go to the line. And now he's got bad reputation around the league with the refs. So that value that he had, he's not going to get any calls. I just think he's reckless with the ball. I think Paul's going to be more efficient. I think Pajemski's going to be more efficient. I do think, John, I don't know what you think of this, but I think I've heard Larry Harris the other night on NBC Sports Bay Area, and the way he was like, "Hey, Warrior fans, people don't like, there's going to be changes. And I know people don't like changes, but give it a chance." And the way he was kind of prepping the audience, John, I think Klay Thompson's going to be dealt. I really do. I think I think there's going to be a major deal in July that sends Klay Thompson and Kuminga somewhere for something big.
Well, I mean, as far as the Paul trade, it's really easy. And I know that fans hate to hear the business side of things, but Joe Lacob is not cheap and has been paying for this thing for years. And the $100 million difference between what Paul's going to make this year, which is $25 million guaranteed, and then after that, he's got a non-guaranteed contract. So he's going to save $100 million on the surface over the 4 years. It's $124 million for Jordan Poole. It's $25 million for Paul, so 99. So we're going to make that $100 million. And then you're talking about the luxury tax savings. They're a second apron team. I know this is boring, but so, I mean, you're looking at potentially $300 or $400 million that Joe Lacob saves. I know people hate that, but that's part of the equation. And then the other thing is exactly what you just pointed out. People forget about residual effects from moves like this. So you bring in Paul, you don't have Poole. So now you can be competitive with anything that Draymond Green gets. Draymond Green's not going anywhere, but there's been discussions of maybe the Lakers opening up $30+ million or the Kings opening up $30+ million. The Warriors now with clearing this money, there's nobody that can outbid the Warriors for Draymond Green services. Now, look, there's a certain point in which they'll say, like if Detroit, for example, who does have that cap room, says, "Hey, we'll give him $5 and $150." All right, you know what? You want to give him $5 and $150, you go right ahead. But the Lakers and the Kings can't give Draymond Green so much money that he would say no. I think Draymond would come back anyway. But if it's a difference of like $10 million a year, something crazy, those teams can't open that money up. And the fact that they let Poole go gives them that kind of flexibility. So people forget about that. So they're going to bring Green back for sure because of this deal. And then the other thing is just what you pointed out on Klay Thompson. Now, maybe they will move him. Maybe they will move Kuminga, whatever the case may be. But they weren't going to be able to sign Klay Thompson next offseason at all. He would have been gone. He would have been a Laker, whatever the case may be, go down there and join his dad, Michael. So this way, if they want to, and he's not getting any super max, he's not getting $40+ million, but they have now the financial flexibility to at least sign Klay Thompson if they want to. And then thirdly, in this situation, people aren't understanding what going over this second tier, the second apron means year after year after year. It means you can't use your mid-level exception. So now you lost another player, and that exception's up to over $12 million, 12.4. So now the Lakers, who are under the second apron but above the first, they can actually still use 12.4. Do you imagine what the Warriors could do with $12.4 million right now? They could bring in one or two really nice players. Given where they are in this whole thing, they can't even use that now. So what's starting to happen with this thing is they're really turning the screws tight in the NBA so that not only does it affect your financial side, but now it's starting to affect how you can build a roster in a really major way. So at some point, they've got to get under that second apron, because then the way that you build a team becomes massively affected. So all these different residual effects, it's not as simple as Jordan Poole is going to make you pay for it because he's going to be great in Washington and Chris Paul's an old guy. Now, we can debate that part of it, but all these other things that go around this trade is why it's good. And then Chris Paul is going to play 25 minutes. He's going to be the second guy. He's going to be the second point guard. He is going to settle everybody down. He's going to take Steph Curry off the ball so that he can rest a little bit more. He's going to take Draymond Green off the ball so that Draymond Green doesn't have to play all the defense and then handle everything on the offensive end. Chris Paul's not going to start, but he's going to finish. There's all these different things. And as you and I pointed out before, if they win a championship with Chris Paul, I don't care if Jordan Poole becomes Michael Jordan for 4 years. It doesn't matter. You got another ring. He's going to be on all-star teams in the Eastern Conference, jacking it up 30 times a game. Wonderful. And they're going to be in the lottery every single year. And it comes down to a big word that we used with Trey Lance, trust. They don't trust Jordan Poole, period. That's what it comes down to. And if you don't think that Steph Curry approved this move, you're crazy. So Curry basically said, I don't want Jordan Poole around either. So for all those reasons, I'm fine with the trade.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to me, and I love Kuminga. I don't want to see Kuminga moved, and God knows we all love Klay Thompson, but I just got the sense that when Larry Harris was saying, hey, fans, there's going to be change, and change is difficult, and have faith and this and that. That's not, he's not saying that for a Jonathan. He's not saying that because they're going to move Moses Moody. He's not saying that because of the Jordan Poole trade that we already know about. And he's not saying that about Jonathan Kuminga. He's saying that about Klay freaking Thompson. So I don't know. I hear this one here from Jay Stamps. He says trading Klay won't piss Steph off. I hear what you're saying. But I knew there'd be pushback. SF Giants meme or mania says Larry's prediction of Klay getting traded as comical as prediction on Trey getting traded at the draft. From what we were told, Trey Lance was very much available. There were no offers at the draft. So you may want to check yourself on that, SFG mania.
That it wasn't through their lack of trying, and I guess this is more logistics than anybody else or anything else. Maybe they weren't picking up the phone and making the call, but they weren't hanging up on people when they did call. It's just like you said, the offers were comical, and they weren't giving Trey Lance away.
Well, let's just say this too. I refuse to believe they didn't consider it because literally before the draft, they cleared enough cap room that if they wanted to trade him, they could have. They had the ability to trade him at the cap or on the draft if they wanted to.
People would be, to just your Klay Thompson point, that would be a tough one to do. That one would be a really tough one to do, to move him. But you know what it's going to come down to is
how are you going to get a Pascal Siakam? How are you going to get a Karl Anthony Towns? How are you going to get a significant big piece and change the outlook of this roster? I'm sorry, I like Pajemski and I like TJD, and I'm these the minimums they could get are guys like Mo Wagner and Damian. Maybe get Damian Lee back. They're not the kinds of guys that are going to move the needle. So do you think the Warriors right now can run it back and beat Denver? No. And they don't think so either. So I personally think Klay's going to land them whatever big fish they're going to. I think that will land them the big fish they're going to land. I mean, he makes $45 million or $43 million. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be a rough day for the Bay Area if it happens, but I could see it happening.
Wow. Yeah. That people would be outraged by that. I mean, I was looking at it as, now they could afford him to a certain number. But again, if he is hell bent and he's not going to have the leverage that Draymond Green has next offseason, if he's hell bent because he mentioned this during the playoff run, on getting some kind of a max or getting somewhere where he is right now as far as close to the number he's getting. They're just not going to be able to afford that. And then it will come down to, and again, you and I have had this conversation, are you more Al Davis or are you more Bill Walsh? Because Bill Walsh would say, look, man, love you, but we're not giving you that money. Al Davis was, as much as this is crazy to say, he was a softie. He loved his guys.
Yeah.
He held on to them too long. And so if you're the Warriors, obviously they're not going to show that with Jordan Poole, but I mean, is Joe Lacob the kind of guy that says Steph's going to retire as a Warrior, but Draymond, Steph, Clay, they are absolutely positively retiring as Warriors, and I don't care what the residual effect is? Or is he the type of guy that's going to say, you know what, I'm the Al Davis or I'm the Bill Walsh type, and we just can't do it. We just can't give you the money. I
just don't see how the Warriors can make another run if they don't make some significant move. You're going to pick at 19 and pick at 57, and you're going to add some guys on minimum contracts, and suddenly you're just going to bring back your old core, and it's all going to be better next year. I don't think so. So I don't think they want to move Clay, but I think Clay's the dice they roll to see if they can shake it up a little bit. Because, I mean, if you can get a Pascal Siakam and an OG Anunoby, I mean, Kuminga, Moody, and Clay to Toronto for Siakam and Anunoby, that works on the cap. Would you make that deal if that deal were out there?
Reluctantly, only because Clay is not what he was. And I don't mean from a shooting standpoint. I don't care what happened in the playoffs in terms of his shot, abandoning him in the Lakers series. He'll get that back. It's just, he's never going to be, and you can't max him out at all. He's never going to be that defensive presence that he was, the on-ball defensive presence that he was. He's just never going to be that. He can't be that. And if you think about it, when they go really small this year, and Chris Paul's in the lineup, and Curry's in the lineup, so that's your small backcourt, and then Clay's going to play a small forward position, right? And Wiggins is going to play, and then Draymond Green's going to be your 5. And that's a really small lineup. And Klay Thompson is going to be forced to rebound, to play, defense on some really, really good perimeter players. Is he able to do that? I mean, to me, Kuminga falls into a little bit like Trey Lance does. I love Kuminga, and I want Kuminga to play, and I think that Kuminga is going to be a really nice player in this league. But some nights I think he's going to be a star, and other nights I think he's just going to be an Andrew Wiggins contributing type of guy. But again, they are in a window proven by the fact that they just traded for Chris Paul. They are in a short window to try to get Steph another championship. There is no gray area of what kind of, we're going to be young, we're going to try to still win championships. They are full bore maximizing Steph Curry. So that means, to me, the next guy could be Kuminga. And I like Kuminga, and I don't want to trade Kuminga. I'm just telling you what I see from a Warriors perspective is that Kuminga, if he can bring, as you point out, somebody loved Kuminga, right? Same kind of a thing. They haven't had an opportunity to play him. They don't trust him. To get a couple of players who could contribute right now to the Warriors is more important than Kuminga's potential down the line. They just showed you that with Jordan Poole. Now, there was a big financial element to it that Kuminga does not possess. But as you said, because of this being over this second apron, it makes it really difficult for them to acquire players. So are you going to wait for Jonathan Kuminga when you've just shown us that you're going to go all in on Steph Curry and whatever he has left in the tank, but you're going to allow Jonathan Kuminga to hang around because you think he has too much potential? If someone calls about Kuminga and they can get players who you may on the surface not believe is as good as the potential of Kuminga, but they can contribute, one or two guys can contribute this year, the Warriors are going to make that move.
I'd be so afraid to trade Kuminga, and Kuminga only makes $6 million. So, and the contracts have to match up. So, I mean, is there a player that makes $6 million or roughly thereabouts that would be worth Jonathan Kuminga?
That's the one thing. Like we saw today from Utah, you don't have to make salaries match up if you're under the cap team. So Utah could take on that big money of John Collins, and they could, because they can take on the cap space. So, those teams are bad teams, though. Those are Orlando, Detroit, Oklahoma City, those type of teams, non-playoff teams. There's nobody that has any cap space. And again, the Kings and the Lakers can create cap space by renouncing players, but you can take on some players. And again, Kuminga is a guy that if you're a non-playoff team, if you're a bad team, if you're Houston, if you're OKC, if you're Orlando, you can bet on the future of Jonathan Kuminga versus a veteran player. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. It's not like it would match. I haven't even thought about this, but like if you want size in Wendell Carter Jr., you say, okay, let's go get Wendell Carter Jr. to be our center. Now, does he possess the potential of Jonathan Kuminga? Hell no, he doesn't. But he could play right now, and he's a 6'10" guy that can give you a little bit of size in the Western Conference when you may have to go up against the Suns and Ayton and Denver and Jokic and, and down the line, maybe Embiid or whatever the case may be. If you feel like, and this can save on Draymond Green a little bit, I'm not saying that's the deal that works. I'm just thinking of a bad team with a player that you use. I'm just saying maybe Orlando would say, okay, we'll give you a Wendell Carter Jr. or whomever, and you give us Kuminga, and then they can wait on Kuminga. They don't care. They're not going anywhere. That's the type of move where you'd look at it, you'd say, okay, that player, you'd be upset because that player is not as good as Kuminga, but the way the Warriors are thinking is the way that we spent a long time talking about how the 49ers are thinking. The clock is ticking. Steph's going to be 36 this year. He was drafted in 2009. The anniversary of his drafting was yesterday, was June 25, 2009. So Steph Curry is now, 15 years? I mean, I love Steph, but we're bitching and moaning about how Chris Paul is old at 38. Steph's 36. Draymond's 33. I mean,
it's time for them to maximize. They don't want to drive their franchise off the cliff. I would be deathly afraid to trade Kuminga. I just think his upside's so spectacular. But it's going to be interesting because, I mean, Kuminga, like, my thing is, who are you going to get that's going to make $6 million that's going to be worth trading Kuminga's future? You're probably going to have to parlay him and somebody else into something. So it'll be interesting. I mean, if they wound up moving Clay, that would just be a monster move. But it was weird listening to Larry Harris go, hey, fans, change is good and change can be tough sometimes. It just felt like he was preparing us for something dramatic. And I just don't think the fans would be like so, I don't know that trading Moody or Kuminga is really dramatic, but if you trade Klay Thompson, that is dramatic. And then I would understand where Larry was coming from. We'll see. We're going to find out here probably July 1st, which is just around the corner. And the last super chat, Mark Hope says, Johnny had a whiskey after getting checked. Thank you. Go ahead, John.
I cannot do whiskey. It very much pains me. Believe me, I had a friend come over the other day and we were hanging out and he was having a whiskey and I was very, very jealous of that. But in time, my friend, in time. One thing that fans need to realize too is a lot of times what happens with these teams in every sport, but right now what's happening in the NBA and free agent, he hasn't even started. One move is going to go to another one. You know what I mean? So it's, in other words, the Warriors just made a move. They're not done. The Boston Celtics just made a move for Porzingis. They're not done. So a lot of times a move equals a next move. That's like everybody thinks you make a move.
There's a series of moves, part of the plan.
Right. There's a plan here. And so a lot of times what a team will do is they'll say, okay, this is the first part of the plan. We do A, B, and C. And then you go, oh, this makes sense. You haven't even seen the full puzzle. So look, and the reason I bring that up too is because, for people who think, well, maybe Draymond would go to the Kings or maybe Draymond would go to the Lakers, they'd have to renounce so many players to make those kind of moves. And you're doing that for Draymond Green, who's 33, who doesn't really want to play in the regular season. And he's not one of those guys. And again, I understand the value of Draymond Green, but you would do that to clear the decks for a guy who was going to give you 20 and 10 every night. Are you going to clear the decks if you're the Lakers? You're going to clear the deck if you're the Kings to get Draymond Green? Because the Kings are beyond the point where they go, hey, let's do this to piss off the Warriors, or let's do this to lessen the Warriors. They're trying to make their own team better. So I don't see the fit with Draymond and the Kings. I don't see the fit with Draymond and the Lakers. So I don't think there's any doubt that he comes back. Now, could those two teams kind of be a pain in the ass and drive up the price a little bit more, either by AAV or by the amount of years that they give him? Potentially, they could leverage and scare the Warriors, kind of like Iguodala did a couple of years ago. I might go here. You got to give me that, what was it, the third or the fourth year that Iguodala got out of that contract because he leveraged him? I think it was it the Bulls or somebody? But anyway, he did that. And I could see Draymond doing that, but I don't think he's going anywhere.
Bro, good to see you. Glad you're healthy. Say hello to your lovely bride. Say hello to George. John, for people who don't know, Johnny's got one of the great kids of all time. He's enjoying college, huh?
A little too much. Yeah, he's at Arizona State. Which,
a little too much.
Yeah, he's going into broadcast school, and You should have seen him yesterday, man. He's been in NFL locker rooms, been in NBA. I've taken him there, but he was been in spring training, but we took him down to I took him to the Giants game on Sunday, and we did the media experience. So I mean, where the booth is at Oracle Park is the best in sports. So you're watching the ball game, but then we go down there and we go into to Gabe Kapler's office, and he's got all the whiskey and he's sitting back and everything, and he's just wide eyed. Then we go into the clubhouse, and some of these guys. Jock Peterson's a real nice guy, so I introduced him to Jock, and he talks to Blake Sable, and he saw Casey Schmidt.
Sable's very cool.
All these guys, baseball players are real laid back. So I mean, he is just like all day, all the way home, just blah 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 blah. So it's just a really cool experience. You've got kids, and you see the same damn thing. It's just really cool to see them, kind of develop and develop all their stuff and their personality and all that kind of stuff. So he's back for the summer, and living in our house and smelling like a stinky kid. And the only thing I have to worry about is like, dude, pick up, you're not in college. Like, pick up your room. Maybe a laundry would be nice once in a while, that kind of stuff. But it's
Is he going with the long hair? Is he still going with the flow?
Yeah, he's got that. That's a big deal down there. So we're always on him, like, because he's working at a local gym, and they've told him like 3 times, like, hey, could you just maybe trim it just a little? And he's got this. I don't even know what to call the thing. I don't even have a clue. I'm jealous.
Awesome.
There's a lot of hair going on. I'm very jealous.
Mark Hope says, "Me too, Johnny. My daughter in college in Boston." There you go. Yeah, it goes by fast, man. I saw a post that you did with a bunch of pictures from all throughout life with George, and I mean, your Father's Day. I saw your Father's Day post, and man, that kid has grown up fast, man. I forgot how little he was when he was on my team. I mean, he was very, very little, and now he's a man. I mean, it's unbelievable.
What's funny is that was maybe like his second year in baseball or something ever playing, and now he's like the biggest baseball junkie you could ever put together. I mean, he's doing a baseball podcast at Arizona State.
He's awesome.
Guy, and he met John and Dave on Sunday. I mean, you'd have thought he met God. I mean, they're sitting there going, "Whoa, what do you want to do, son? What do you?" And Dave. I mean, Dave's on ESPN. He's doing Giants. He's doing college basketball, college football. I mean, and it's just he's looking at them. They're right. He's looking out to the field from their booth, and he's just like, "That's what I want to do, Dad. That's what I want to do." I mean, it's just cool, man. It's cool.
Very cool that you can share that with him. Johnny, good to see you, man. Good luck on the radio. Good luck on John Lund Unleashed on the Locked On Network. Keep it rolling, man. And sorry I took 2 hours of your time, but man, when we get ropping and with so much Niners, and then with all this, you and I can go for hours. I always love rapping with you during the games and picking your brain. So, man, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. You're the best, man. I love doing all the pre and post stuff with you. We did ESPN Radio together. We worked a ton of years together. And when I first got here, it didn't matter that you were on KMBR and I was on the other place. You and I became really close friends. We've known each other for over a decade, and you're just kicking ass. And I love it. And I love all the fans that you have and the loyalty that they've shown to you. And you're awesome. And you've done just a tremendous job in building the Krueg show and this channel. And it's awesome, man. So congratulations to you and to the best of your kids. And Kevin's awesome. And everybody, you're just doing such a tremendous job. And I know there's a lot of people that are watching you going, man, if I could do what Krueg is doing, because you've really built this. But you know what? You've earned it. Your reputation is impeccable. You work your ass off. You got contacts. You know what's going on in the industry. So congrats on all the success, because it's not luck, man. You've worked your butt off for it.
Well, I'll tell you, we have worked hard, but I'll tell you, it is a lot of fun. And whether we're on the same station, rival stations, same medium, different mediums, we're friends for life, brother. Appreciate you. We'll talk soon. I'm sure I'll see you around. And have a great night. Thanks for coming on the Krueg Show, man.
Man, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
The great John Lund in the house. He is phenomenal. And glad to see that Johnny's healthy. And, there's good people, a lot of good people in this world who cover sports. And Johnny is absolutely one of the really, really good people. And his kid's great. His wife's great. His show is great with Greg. And he's one of the guys that I really love to hear talk Niner ball, because he knows it. He knows it like the back of his hand, but he also knows people. He's got great instincts for it. And you guys just were treated to one of the very, very best talking Niners on a fun day to talk Niners too, with the story breaking about Albert Breer and the 49er quarter, the latest from the 49er quarterback saga. So hope you guys enjoyed that. All right, we are brought to you by our sponsors, Marin Auto Glass. Check them out, marinautoglass.com, 415-883-3030. We're also brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. They got 2 locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. The brisket is amazing. The brisket chili is even more amazing. You got to try it. If you're in Marin County, only in Marin, they have the potato chips that they make every day and cook them in beef fat, and they're just easily the greatest chip of all time. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California.
So New York style sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed.
All right, coming down the stretch on the Krueg Show on a Monday night. Hope everybody enjoyed the show tonight. Monday, June the 26th. John Lund is always a great guest, and we appreciate Johnny jumping in. We are sitting at 19,432 subs. So hit like and subscribe, everybody. That helps the channel. You can go to thekruegshow.com if you want merchandise now. That's right. We hooked it up with the website, thekruegshow.com. You can buy any kind of merchandise you want and that we offer there. And then if anybody who gets merchandise at all, any kind of T-shirts or sweatshirts, we always cut a video for an individualized home video directly for you because we appreciate you that much. Dusty Gold says, Larry is breaking windows for Marin Auto Glass. Yes, that's what I do. I go through the Bay Area and I just smash windshields, and then I leave a little card that says, hey, windshield busted? Try Marin Auto Glass. And that might not be the smoothest game plan of all time. But yeah, also, what was I going to say? Oh, tomorrow on the show, Vish Kumaran is going to stop by. We'll talk a little ball with Vish. Also tomorrow from 2 to 6 p.m., I'll be on 95.7 The Game. So check me out tomorrow in Afternoon Drive with the great Dan Dibley. So the next couple days on the radio with Dan Dibley from 2 to 6 p.m. on 95.7 The Game. And then after the show ends, I will get in my car. I will race from the studios in downtown San Francisco to my home studio to stream tomorrow night with the great Vish Kumaran. So hope you enjoyed the day today. We were on with Grant earlier on his channel. We'll be making some videos on some of the stuff that we talked about there. And hope you enjoyed the deal with Johnny. Also, we're trying to chase down Brandon Podjemski of the Warriors to get him on this week. Larry Harris is going to join us to talk a little bit about the draft. We're not sure exactly what day. We may want to move it till after the 1st of July to take advantage of if they make a trade or not. Then we could have Larry on then, and he could talk about the trade. So we may wind up doing that. We may wind up holding off a couple days on Larry Harris. But we got a lot of great things on the channel planned for the week, and we'll keep them a secret because nothing is confirmed as of yet. But we got a lot of good segments. If there's anybody that you ultimately would love to hear me interview or bring onto the show, throw it in the chat. Throw it in the chat. I'd love to hear over the next few days, guests that you'd love to hear in the month of July. So Giants are playing good. Warriors are making moves. And the Niners are getting ready for camp. And we talked a lot tonight about the Albert Breer story. And for those of you who don't know the story, I guess you can go to 49er Web Zone. But Breer basically talked extensively about how Brock Purdy's their number one and that most likely Sam Darnold is going to be their number two, at least going into camp, because they've given Trey lots of chances. He says they feel they've already given this guy a lot of chances. A lot of people would say, what? He started 4 games. But, they've obviously evaluated him, and they're in this weird conundrum where Trey needs to play. He hasn't played a lot of football. He's only played 1 year of real football since high school, 1 full year in college. Then you got the COVID year. You got it canceled his 3rd year in college. He redshirted as a freshman. Then he goes into the pros. He redshirts his rookie year. He's had the injury year. So he really hasn't played. And they're sitting there going, well, he's going to make mistakes, and we don't want to see that because we're trying to go for it now. And it sounds like they don't even want to stomach his mistakes, even if Brock isn't ready to roll in September. Maybe that's not the case, but that's definitely what the song that Albert Breer was singing earlier today. So we shall see. I have a feeling that you can say a lot of things can be said, but when they roll those footballs out there in camp and in the preseason, that's when this thing really is for real. That's when we're going to see the real competition. And if Trey Lance plays spectacularly, I find it really hard to believe that Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy's not ready to go in week 1. I find it hard to believe that they would go with Sam Darnold, but you never know. So there you go. We talked a lot about it tonight. All right, that is going to do it for us for the night. Hope everybody has a great rest of your night. Until tomorrow, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one.